Okay. So this topic, transforming problems into happiness. It's huge. It's massive. And the thing is, if we put it in I think it's important, I think really important, in order to understand it properly, it's actually a really advanced practice, actually. In other words, it's put in terms of the Lam Rim, the presentation of the teachings, the stages of the path. It's taught in the Mahayana path, which is sort of like, I love to use the analogy of junior school, high school, university, and postgraduate, because immediately we hear those terms, even though we might use them in different ways in different cultures, we immediately understand it's levels of teachings, levels of progress, levels. Even when we say the Lam Rim, we know it means that, but it still doesn't quite convey it to us, you know. So when we understand that, transforming problems is on the bodhisattva component, which is the university level, you could say like that. Then it gives us a pause. Wow, it's difficult. So if we all know in anything you study, if you had to go off to university, you've got to have some prerequisites. You've got to have done high school. You've got to have done junior school. So what is it here? What is it we need? What's implied if this is a high teaching? Well, as Pavanka Rinpoche says, this type of teaching, he says you need to be a suitable vessel. And what he means is you need to have done high school and junior school. So what does that mean? That means the nuts and bolts of Lord Buddha's teachings, the things that we get in the first and the second scopes of the teachings, which are the teachings we share with the Hinayana path, with the Theravada path. They're exactly the same teachings, the teachings you'd get in Burma or Thailand. That's the first and second, or the lowest and middle scopes of the Lam Rim, junior school and high school. You'd say that. So they're the prerequisites. In other words, you can't begin, we know perfectly well, you can't just leap into university studies of anything. You've got to be qualified. Because the point here is transforming problems essentially means when bad things happen. What we mean by a problem is when the bad things happen. Your knee hurts, that's a problem. Your husband leaves you, that's a problem. There's war, you get poverty, you've got poor, your basement floods, you get cancer. When the bad things happen, that's what we mean by a problem. So then we think, well, what does that mean? How can I use that to be happy? It's in normal worldly terms, it's completely contradictory. By definition, a problem means you're miserable. What happened there? Who's talking? Nobody. Okay. Um, my echo. I should turn my machine off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, good. Now you can hear me. Good, thanks. Okay, thank you, Rami. Thank you. Okay, so if it's teachings to help us deal with a problem, how to get happy, we need to know the mind. We need to, because it's all about the mind. We all know Buddha's expertise is the mind. So if when bad things happen, okay, let's use this. Always keep simple examples. Don't wait to be accused of murder and being thrown to death row before you start dealing with a problem. Start with the simple problems. Let's say there's something as simple as stubbing your toe. Honestly, there's something as simple as that. That would be called a problem. It's something you don't want. So then, let's look at what's happening in the mind when you stub your toe. The toe is physical, so that's a sensory experience of pain. There's no question. But what's the suffering about? Well, that is the suffering. But the thing is, I think when we start to see our minds, what we realize is the moment we stub our toe, the moment a bad thing happens, we get angry to some degree or another. That's the piece that's the problem. That's the piece that's the problem. In other words, and anger, so that means we have to understand anger. Well, where in the Lam Rim is anger taught? Well, that's in high school. That's in the middle scope. So we have to go back to what is anger. So when we realize that anger is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, then even more powerful is understanding attachment. Well, this is right back to the Four Noble Truths, right back to the middle scope, the Four Noble Truths, Buddha's basic presentation of his findings. One, there is suffering. Two, there are causes. Three, you can get rid of suffering and its causes. And four, how to do it. That's Buddha's basic teachings, the first teaching he gave. That's the wisdom wing. A bird needs two wings, remember? wisdom, and compassion. So the Mahayana component is what you study in a more advanced level based upon being qualified from understanding karma and the mind. Because in the second noble truth, there are causes, and Lord Buddha tells us very simply there are two causes of suffering, honey. One is the negative karma that you created in the past, and two is the delusions in your mind that inform that action. And both of those are inside yourself. Big shock to us that our suffering, our problems are caused by ourselves, you know. So the implication here isn't the external. Work on the external problem. Okay, if you're trying to avoid stubbing your toe again, that's practical. But the point is the mind. Buddha's all about the mind. And this is quite unique to the Buddha. When you study the mind in Buddhism, unless we've got to go back to the high school here now, and indeed junior school, that's where karma is. And that's the wisdom wing. That's the nuts and bolts of the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim. This is the stuff we have to become familiar with that qualifies us to even get, which therefore qualifies us, makes us a suitable vessel so that when we hear how we can learn to be happy when you stub your toe, we know what it means. Otherwise, it's just mysterious and weird, you know? It's quite technical. We need to know the teachings properly. Otherwise, it's not possible. So the thing about the study of the mind in Buddhism is that it's just the mind. When you study psychology in the West, when you study neuroscience in the modern world, science and psychology, it's all about behavior. It's all about the brain. It's all about what your parents did to you. It's all about the external environment. We don't separate, you know, our problems from all of that. Whereas when you study the mind in Buddhism, you only study the mind. You look at what is in the mind, because as far as Buddha's concerned, this is his unique point, that what goes on in our mind is the main source, the first cause, the main cause of whether we're happy or suffering. This is a really precise, clear point. We might hear it, but we don't really hear it because we don't believe it. Even though we're all good little Buddhists, we completely believe that happiness and suffering are coming from the outside world, you know, and we can be forgiven for thinking so. The external world is so powerful for us. We're dragged from pillar to post. We know that by the outside world, by the external experiences, by the people and the things and the bed that hit my toe and the external, the physical. Even the physical is external. In Buddhist terms, even the body is an external event. The mind is internal. I mean, it's a hugely important point. And where we become familiar with these teachings is in the lower scope, you know, in the middle scope. And karma, the very first one, is what we learn in the junior school, the first scope. So we've got to be familiar with these. Not just, oh yeah, it's karma. We have to have a little bit of knowledge about the meaning of karma. Absolutely basic, fundamental. Because applying the view of karma is one of the crucial tools that you use to help you become happy when problems occur. It's based on understanding cause and effect. It's based on understanding karma. So we have to have a bare minimum understanding of the meaning of it, what it is, how it ripens, the four ways that karma ripens, how you purify it. These are crucial pieces of information that we have to understand this, how to utilize the difficulties of life. Not just to make us happy now, not to, and that takes time. But even more than that, more profound, is having those experiences enabling us to interpret them in such a way that we sow positive seeds in our mind that will ripen in the future as happiness. That's a very tough one for us. We all hear those views, but we're so addicted to immediate happiness, immediate happy feelings, that's why we give up so easily. We're not used to thinking of programming ourselves and sowing the seeds that will ripen in the future as happiness. We want it now, you know. That's very strong in us, isn't it? So taking a simple example of the stubbing the toe, not to mention your husband being mean to you, not to mention your children not doing what you want, not to mention the rest of the world, all the dramas that happen, and sickness and all the rest. Just a simple example, and we look at our response to it. So, okay, even to understand this, you know, it's really helpful to look at this. Okay, will I go there or not? I'm not sure. Okay. Yes, there's two ways we experience things in our mind. One is the sensory consciousness. This is quite a powerful point, actually. One is our sensory consciousness. Then one is our mental consciousness. One is our sensory consciousness, and one is in our mental consciousness. So stubbing the toe is a good example because the sensory consciousness is involved, isn't it? Tactile. When you hit your toe, there's pain, very real experience called physical pain in the toe. That's the sensory consciousness. That's the sensory conscious. So it's crucial, well, especially when we're trying to transform problems, to make this distinction. Because what happens is then the mental consciousness takes over, and what happens is, of course, immediate aversion arises and you get angry. That's your mental consciousness. But because it's such an automatic thing for us, you see me angry, you see me upset. Why are you upset, Robina? I just stubbed my toe. And then you could say to me, well, you don't have to be angry about that. And you say, I'd say, don't be ridiculous. Of course I'm angry. I stubbed my toe. Of course I'm angry. My husband is leaving me. Of course I'm angry. The world is a suffering place. We assume, I think, in our world that anger is a natural response and you don't have a choice about it. But this is the key to understanding how you transform that problem of stubbing your toe. You can't change the physical experience. That we're sort of locked in our bodies, isn't it? Your senses, your sensory consciousness just does its thing. So when we can make this distinction between the sensory and the mental, it's quite really helpful for us. This is a crucial thing to understand. I know, I think this is very true because I think in the world now, and in the way people talk about pain management, pain is physical. Pain is your sensory consciousness. So the way they talk about people learn to do different techniques to work on your mental consciousness and basically this is the point about transforming problems, you've got to reinterpret it. Reinterpret it. That's really what we're doing here. You're learning to reinterpret that experience of what we would call pain. Reinterpret the experience of your husband being mean to you. Reinterpret your experience of the bad politicians and the wars happening and your children being mean to you. Whatever it is, look at the world. Look at the daily life, even our own lives. Ordinary moments of suffering, moments of problems throughout the day we have. Things that happen that we don't want. Basically, that's what a problem is, a thing you don't want to happen. So when we make this distinction in the app, one thing is the distinction between the sensory consciousness and the mental. This is really huge. This is really important. So that's a sensory experience. Very clear. Now, um, another problem might be called the red light. You're in a hurry to get to work, and suddenly the red light comes, and all the traffic's blocked. There's no sensory consciousness involved there in any kind of suffering at all. That's purely mental, isn't it? Think about that. Okay, there's a red light, and it is the object of your eye consciousness, but there's no pain involved in that. It's your interpretation of it that makes it a problem. And this is the real point. And we won't understand this if we suddenly hear it, unless we've done high school, unless we've looked at the mind, unless we've studied the mind, unless we understand the Buddhist approach to the mind. And most of us don't. I mean, I don't know if you have studied it here. Have you studied low rig here? Has Lauren or people taught, or Geshe that taught low rig?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's where you study the mind. But it probably mostly goes in one ear and out the other because it sounds so boring and technical. But that's the basis of understanding Buddhism. It's so important. So what are the crucial pieces? Let's go back to the mind. Well, first of all, the sensory and the mental, that's about the mind. And that's an important point. Because I think what we can see before we'll go there, what we can see is when the anger arises, or the worry, or the anxiety, that's attachment. You see all the wars and the dramas, and we hear it. That's facts. Though hearing is a sensory experience, although there's no pain in your experience, there's no pain in your ears, but it's the interpretation of it. That's what we're talking about here. We're working on the mental consciousness. We're working on the contents of our mind, our thoughts and interpretations and emotions. That's where we are working. So that the nuts and bolts of that, as I'm saying, are taught in the middle scope. So we have to go back to the middle scope to remind ourselves of what are the states of mind that are arising that are the interpretations of this stubbing the toe or the war or the husband leaving you. That's the key thing to see. We live our lives from the moment we wake up in the morning we come back to life. The senses are all working. You see things and smell things and hear things and taste things and touch things. But what's actually happening is the mental consciousness, as Lama Zopa says, that's where the workshop is, where all the thoughts and feelings and emotions and interpretations are happening, you know? So the first thing is you get out of bed, you stub your toe. That's a physical experience, but then your mind takes over and interprets it. Bed, this, and then you're angry for the rest of the day. That's your mental consciousness, you know. That's where we have to do the work. That's where the workshop is. And that's where we study in the middle scope. So let's go back to that and look at it. So here we have the Buddhist model of the mind. Remind ourselves of what we already know, you know. One, it is not physical. This is the most fundamental point of all. And if we're going to be using karma as a crucial application, a crucial technique in transforming problems is based on the understanding of karma, okay? So that comes right in the first scope. So we have to go back to these two. The first scope, where we learn the nuts and bolts of karma, and the second scope, where we learn the nuts and bolts of the contents of the mind, how the mind works. This is where we find the tools, you know, to transform problems into happiness. So let's reaffirm our lower scope and middle scope knowledge. Let's look at it, you know. So the mind, which is dealt with in the middle scope, really it has to be known first of all to understand karma. So let's look at this. Just remind ourselves. So one, mind is not physical. That word is used synonymously with the word consciousness. Broadly speaking, they're used synonymously in different contexts, okay? First of all, your mind is not physical. Second, and all this, even just so it sounds like technical, it plays a huge role in our ability to interpret our problems and our happiness. So the second part about the mind is that and this is the biggest shock for us, it's not the handiwork of anybody else. I can't tell you how huge this is, especially the materialist philosophical view that says your mind is your brain and it comes from mummy and daddy. So your brain does come from mummy and daddy, no argument. But your mind isn't the brain, Buddha says. We've got to kind of squeeze our brain a bit to think that through. So the way I like to put it, without insulting neuroscientists, is to say that what goes on in the brain, really best to say it, is it's a physical indicator of what's happening in the mind, which is not physical. That's the key way to put it, I think. Because your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your unconscious, your subconscious, even the sensory consciousness that works with the physical body, that's still not physical as well. Sensory consciousness is not physical. The body's physical. So this is so important to understand from the Buddhist perspective. It's not the same as how we talk in the modern world at all. We've got to really think it through. So your mind is not physical. It is not the handiwork. And there's two options. You're the product. You're the handiwork of a creator, which is one big view that goes on in the world, isn't it? Most religious views are the creator. Or two, you're the handiwork of your mummy and daddy. So, I mean, that view pervades our world, doesn't it? All the things you read in all your news and all on the iPad and everybody's assumptions and everybody thinks and all your science, all your psychology, all based on that assumption that your mind is not physical, it's the brain and you get it from mummy and daddy. Or generally speaking, the outside world. We say it. I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. We joke, but we mean it very seriously. And if we look at anger and attachment and all the other delusions, they're the voices of that ego. You know, we'll go into that, which is why we suffer so badly. So your mind's not physical, not the handiwork of mummy and daddy. And of course, it's the word that's used to not wait, it's got much subtler levels. We've got thought, it's a word that's used to refer to your thoughts, all your intellect, all the conceptual ideas about science and music and math and IT and AI, all this stuff, all that clever thinking process. That's all those thoughts are covered by the word mind. Then your emotions, your feelings, anger and love and kindness, they're all also covered by the word mind. And all these are mental consciousness. Then you've got unconscious, subconscious, instinct, intuition, all these approaches. All of this is your mind. All of it is not physical. All of it is not from someone else. All of it, therefore, is your own. So this idea of karma then implied here, even without much information about it, is already got a tremendously powerful experiential application. Because when we look at the way we suffer now, especially, Forget maybe the stubbing the toe knot, when bad things happen to us, when someone abuses you, when someone steals from you, when you get thrown out of your job because you're accused of doing something you didn't do, all the wars out there. The way we experience suffering is so traumatic. My feeling is my way of saying it. Because in the modern world, forget whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, but the materialist view is saying basically that your mother made you, which means that you don't play any role in who you are. You got plonked on this planet, and then good things happen and bad things happen, and you can't control it. So I think this is no wonder we suffer so tremendously from anxiety and panic and fears and dramas, because we don't have an explanation of why things happen. This is very true, I think. Think about it. We have no philosophy that says why bad things happen to good people or why good things happen to bad people. It's all just good luck and bad luck. So life is feels kind of random. If you really think it through, no wonder we're so traumatic. Well, no wonder we suffer so terribly. I think that the creative view is superior, no question. Because at least then somebody's got a plan. If you have faith in God, if you have faith in a creator, creator's got a plan. The creator made you. The creator knows what he's doing. He keeps his plan in his pocket, and that's fine, but you have faith in him. I think you'll live a happy life. I mean, maybe people who have faith in a creator don't do that so seriously, which is why they suffer. They second guess God all the time, Very rude. Do you understand my point? So I think you'd be happy if you really put your money where your mouth was when it comes to a creator. But there's no space for it in the philosophical view of materialism. I really think so. Because there's no explanations of why bad things happen to good people. It just seems like bad luck and good luck. No wonder we're panicked. But the karmic one is another alternative. And this is the one we're discussing here. This is huge, really. The implication experientially of applying karma, of really applying it, not just go, oh yeah, it's karma. That's not enough. Putting meat on the bones, There's no question. This is one of the first steps in transforming problems. So let's look at it, just to remind ourselves. So your mind is not physical, not the handiwork of mummy daddy. It doesn't come from superior being, and it can't come from nothing. Nothing can come from nothing. Everything has a cause. We kind of get that, So if you go back to that first second of conception in your mother's womb, if you go back to the second before, where did that first moment come from? Well, the egg we know was in mummy's body the second before, and the sperm was in daddy's body the second before. That we get. So where was my mind? Well, it came from it's its own continuity. Just think this way. It's like a continuity of mental moments. And the second of conception, the mind at the first second of conception, you track it back to a moment of its own, in its own continuity. And a few weeks before that, according to the Buddhist teachings, it was in a previous body, and so on and so forth. This is a theory, right? You have to swallow it whole. I've got to start with a hypothesis, though. So the consciousness, so we come into this life fully programmed, Buddha says, with our own tendencies, with our own experiences, with our own mind. I mean, this is a super powerful concept. That's not the view of Christianity and Islam, and it is not the view of the materialist view. I mean, you can very happily blame God if God made you, and you can happily blame your mum if she made you. But here, nobody made you. You bring your own stuff with you. These words are simple, but the implication of this is so tremendous. And this is the starting point of the Buddhist view of the world, Consciousness is its own, each person's mind is their own river of mental moments. So the fundamental idea of karma is that every millisecond of what we think and do and say programs us. Everything we think and do and say, none of it goes astray. Every millisecond of what we think and do and say is like it leaves a seed in the mind, as Buddha puts it. And all seeds, as we know, as they go along, get the right amount of nourishment, will then ripen in the future. And in this context, in 4 ways. 1, as a type of rebirth. 2, as a type of a mind in that rebirth. And what we're talking here is basically a bunch of mental tendencies. 3, as the experiences we have in this life in relation to others. And 4, even the physical world and how it impacts upon us. the four ways that our past actions ripen in the present, and therefore, of course, every millisecond of what we think and do and say now will ripen in the future in those ways. Every experience we have now of our body and our mind and our experiences in the environment, they are the fruit of our past actions. As a theory, it's not complicated. It's just so completely different from what we are, what the Christian teachings say, or the Muslim ones, and what the materialist view says. Is so different. It's not complicated as a theory, but it takes a while to take it on board. So if we really look at this one and look at how we look at how deep in our bones the usual view in our world, which is the world of the materialist philosophical approach. The view, like I said, the view really is, and it's in our bones. Since we're born, we've been picking this view up. The world talks this way, that we are the handiwork of someone else. We didn't have any role in who we are. Therefore, we don't really know, therefore, why good or bad things happen. They just seem fairly random. That's how we feel. We really feel like this. The world appears this way to us, you know? And I think this is why we suffer. It's clear. So to really understand that, we have to understand the way attachment and aversion work, attachment and anger. And it mightn't immediately seem evident, but the more we understand this, which is the mind, middle scope, the more we can see, having the view of no karma, that I'm the innocent victim plonked on this planet by somebody else. Somebody else had a plan and plonked me here, and they didn't tell me about it. That's how we feel. So no wonder, if that's the truth, no, forget the truth, but that's the truth, is how we feel. Now, if we really feel like I'm this innocent victim who didn't ask to get born, then it's really true. Well, then who the hell is responsible for me? And it's their job to make me happy, and they'd better stop making me suffer, please. It's their job out there. So this is attachment and aversion. Look at attachment. I mean, we can spend the rest of the day now on attachment. And the more we understand it, the more easy we can understand transforming problems. The same with anger, because they're the players. They're the main players in our daily life, surprisingly to us. I mean, this is not the neuropsychological view. This is the neuroscientific view. This is not the modern psychological view. Definite. This is Buddha's view, his psychological view. And remember, he didn't make it up. He didn't create it. He's not speculating. He's not a creator. There's no such view in Buddhism. That's a really important point to remember. I always remember that in New Zealand years ago, one guy in the audience, and he happened to be a scientist. And he asked me, and I always say this, it's the only time anyone has ever asked me this question. It's a great question. He said, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Of course you'd ask that, because that's what we think of as religion, isn't it? Religion, by definition, in the world is a creator, a boss, an enlightened being, a person who's perfect, who decides to create me and the world and the laws. So naturally then, he would ask that question because he assumed Buddhism, like every other religion, is revelation from on high. And there's a huge, I mean, the way it was so simple how he asked it, but it's a massive point. So my answer was, I said to him, would you ask Einstein who revealed the teachings about relativity to him? And of course, we all laughed because we wouldn't. And you know why? Because we know Mr. Einstein is an intelligent fellow who used his mind, observed the laws of the world. That's what he did. He didn't look in the sky. He didn't have a vision. He didn't make it up. He's not speculating. He didn't have a dream of it. Wasn't revelation. He used his noggin. He observed the world. He came up with certain hypotheses. He tested them. He tried them out. He then codified them as laws, and he presented his findings, and he said, this is what I have found to be true. This is my methodology. Over to you. That's Buddha. I can't stress this enough. That's Buddha. That's Buddha. There's no concept of creator. Now that shocks us, because what do you mean? How can you prove reincarnation, we say? How can you prove the mind is not physical, we say? How can you have clairvoyance, we'll say? Well, that's embedded and in Buddha's findings. They came from these genius Indians, these Hindus, as Dalai Lama says, were these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago. They were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. We arrogant modern people think it was Mr. Freud 100 years ago. I mean, how rude of us. And those Indians were the ones who created that brilliant technique called single point of concentration, which, and therefore, I would put it this way, they discovered the mind. They didn't invent the mind, they discovered it. They identified it through using single point of concentration. And so Buddha comes out of that incredibly sophisticated system. Only now modern thinkers are beginning to even pay attention, you know. It's incredible, actually, when you think about it. So when you learn about the mind, got these much subtler levels of cognition. So if we look at the way when we study the mind, you study the epistemological model of the mind, the way it works. And remember, we're not discussing the brain here. This is mind-bogglingly fascinating, I tell you. Just the epistemological model, the way the mind works. So within this one, you've got, like I said before, you've got your sensory and your mental, and they are totally different parts of us. But as Amiyeshi says, we make the body the boss. Our senses completely dominate us. But like I said about stubbing the toe, there's two things going on. Your sensory consciousness is the pain in the toe, and then the mental consciousness, which is what kicks in immediately, is where your anger comes up, and your interpretation of it, and how dare it happen to me, and poor me, and blah, blah. All that's mental consciousness. They're separate events. It's a huge point. Your sensory consciousnesses are very limited in their capacity for cognition. We give them way more power than they even have, you know, and all this is part of the process, part of the way of understanding the mind in Buddhism, which informs as we get to the Mahayana path, and we want to try and transform problems. We become a suitable vessel. So, sensory and mental. Mental is where the workshop is. That's our main concern. So within the mental consciousness, which is not physical, the sensory consciousness itself is not physical. Toe is physical, but the sensory consciousness is that part of your mind, not physical, that functions through the medium of the physical bits. But they are different. They're not the same. This is a crucial piece in Buddhism. And these Indians found this the same. Your eye consciousness is that part of your mind that functions through the medium of the eyeball and all the bits and pieces working properly. And it cognizes. The job of the mind is to cognize, to know, to be aware. That's its function. So eye consciousness can only cognize two things: shape and color. That's it. Ear consciousness, it can't cognize divine Miles Davis. There's that trumpet. It cognizes mere sound. So where does the divine Miles Davis trumpet come from? Well, the second your ears hear that sound, at least my ear, my mental consciousness will be accessed quicker than Google, I promise, all of us. And then out of my mouth will come, wow, wow, Miles Davis. That is not ear consciousness, that's mental consciousness. It's an opinion, a viewpoint, an idea, a thought, a concept, and that's what's in the mental consciousness. And this is where we now get to the psychological model, and Buddha describes the mental consciousness and its contents. And you've got three main kinds of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Three categories precisely: the negative, I-based, fear-based, neurotic, disturbing, afflicted, deluded, whatever word you like. The garbage ones, the rubbish ones that cause us to live in la-la land, that lead us up garden paths, that in their nature are misconceptions and therefore are liars and mislead us and cause us suffering. The second lot are our virtues. They're our saving grace. They are also concepts. They're rooted in concepts. We'll describe this. But they're valid concepts. Valid not in a moralistic sense, but in a sense that they're in sync with at least conventional reality, dependent arising. The delusions, the misconceptions, the afflictions are not rooted in dependent arising. They're distorted, exaggerated misconceptions. They misrepresent the world back to us, as Lama Zopa says. This is the Buddhist analysis. This is huge. It's so tasty, you know. So let's look at those neurotic affliction states of mind and the virtues. Oh, sorry, the third category are merely called, they're usually referred to as not, the first lot are called negative or non-virtue. We can also call them afflicted, deluded, neurotic, whatever word you like. The second lot are called virtues or valid cognitions, valid, at least the emotional ones, love, compassion, kindness, those ones, you know. And then the third lot are called neither negative nor positive, which sounds kind of weird, but I prefer to call this lot, the third lot, the mechanics of our mind. They're the ones that are neither negative nor positive in their character. And that's why it's so important if you want to understand Buddhist psychology, you've got to know the meaning of these. They're not just punitive concepts. They've got a very powerful meaning. But this third lot, they're neither of those, but they're crucially necessary states of mind. So intention, not motivation, but mere I will, volition, or good memory, or discrimination, or concentration. These states of mind are necessary to do anything properly, including murder somebody. So whether you're a murderer or a meditator, you need all of these working nicely. So they're not negative and they're not positive, but they're crucially important. So curiously, without getting us confused now, the one called feeling is in there. And that's not the way we use the word feeling, not the way we use emotion. It's literally, we only have three kinds of feeling: happy or pleasant, unhappy, unpleasant, or neutral, neither. Well, forget the neutral. So pleasant feelings and unhappy feelings. So so when they stub your toe, that's a very unpleasant feeling, isn't it? When your massage therapist strokes you nicely, that's a pleasant feeling. So in this sense, this word feeling, and this is a really important point actually, is not referring to attachment. Attachment is in the first category, which is a neurotic, deluded state of mind. And then but happy feelings and unhappy feelings, this is so important. They're neither good nor bad. They're just the nature of mind. This is how the mind is. We utterly confuse them. And of course, we all want happy feelings. And this is where we're problem with samsara. Buddha tells us we're up a garden path, we're lost, because we think that getting what attachment wants is the way to get happy feelings. And then when you don't get what attachment wants, that causes unhappy feelings. So we spend all our lives trying to push away the objects and get the nice boyfriend and the nice food and the nice weather because we don't want the unpleasant feelings. So pleasant and unpleasant feelings is a huge important point, and it's not in the category of virtues, and it's not in the category of delusions. It's in this third category called, like I call, the mechanics of the mind. This is very specific to Buddhism. And if you don't understand this, you get confused. Are we communicating? So let's look at the negative ones, because they're the problems. The three poisons. We love this. I mean, you look at any Buddhist book, the first thing you're going to see is the three poisons. But it sounds so boring to us. You don't go to your therapist, oh, I've got the three poisons. They'll laugh at you, you know. You got to come with the fact that your husband's going to kill you or something. Your I mean, it's like a joke almost. It's so cute, isn't it? Three poisons. Give us a break, you know. I mean, a heavy-duty neuroscientist or best quality psychiatrist would not give a talk on YouTube, on TED, on the three poisons. They'd be laughed out of the room, you know. Do you understand my point? So we don't even look at it properly. What's he talking about then? Well, you know, we all talk about, we can hear Buddha talk about 84,000 problems. I always ask the Geshis, what text will I find the list of 84? He said, you're not going to find it. But they keep talking about Buddha saying 84,000. And Ling Rinpoche, has he been here recently? The young, he's the one who always says 21,000 of the 84 are rooted in the first of the three poisons, ignorance. The second 21,000 are rooted in attachment. The third 21,000 are rooted in aversion. And the fourth 21,000 are rooted in all four. So this is kind of this coherent map of the mind, basically. You know, it's amazing. So, okay, let's now look at the three poisons. Excuse me, sniffing. Before I go further, I've said so many things already. I don't know what the time is. 10 to 11. We've been 50 minutes and I've said a lot of words. So before I go further into details, we're now getting to the point finally. We're going to see how we can transform problems by understanding attachment and aversion. This is the background. So any questions first? We'll take a breather. Okay. I'll have a cup of tea. Oh, look at this tea. Questions, come on. Yeah. Who? Yes, go, darling.
Yeah, so just say we have a unpleasant physical pain.
Yes.
Does that physical pain
We've got a mic.
automatically like
No mic for
generate-
questions.
No.
Well, I'll repeat them for the person. Go, darling. Say it.
Okay, so let's say we stub our toe.
Yes.
We have physical pain.
Pain, yes.
signal.
That's feeling.
Does the mind automatically produce that unpleasant feeling,
So-
and then later we develop anger?
No, I think, no, yes, I think the senses are the first. It's a really good point. No, for sure. You know, the second you stub your toe, that's the first one. I mean, the only reason you get angry is because attachment doesn't get what it wants. Attachment, you see, attachment is sitting there. We're not realizing it. We're going to go into this. Your attachment is just there as an assumption that you'd better only have nice feelings. Attachment only ever wants nice feelings. And then this damn bed comes along and disturbs your peace. How dare it? So then aversion arises that second. Of course, that comes second. That's right.
So we have like unpleasant physical stimulus,
Yeah.
and then
Or pleasant.
Eventually like anger, but like the in between.
Well, I think it's almost like instantaneous. What do you mean by in between?
Just like how they're related, like how a physical pain can become anger.
Okay, this is what we're going to. This is what we're looking. Okay, this is what we're looking at. This is the whole point about being in samsara. That's where if you look at someone like Lama Zopa, I mean, you just now Jody was reading this eulogy that they asked me to write about Lama Zopa, and when you read what he was like, it's clear he had no attachment or aversion. So there he is having a stroke, and he was, sick, but he was even more. He was like radiantly happy. And that's the point about bodhisattvas. They've perfected this transforming problems. When a pain in their body comes, they are so trained. They've gone beyond attachment and aversion, and they only have happy feelings, mental happiness. We're going to get into that. They've trained to perfection. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, I'm just a little unclear of like the chain of reaction.
Oh, no, I'm going to go into it.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go into it. But I'm saying this is the whole point of what is possible. That when you get
the physical can become mental, or the mental can become physical.
It's not a question of becoming. They're separate things, and they work together. So they don't. Pain doesn't turn into anger. Pain is a physical pain is a bunch of your is a function of your sensory consciousness, and anger is a function of your mental consciousness. They're both your mind, but there's two tracks of mind. They're two ways your mind works. Can you hear those words first? We'll go into it. Don't worry. We'll go into it. I bet you're hearing those words. You've got sensory consciousness, and then we have mental. But this is, okay, it's a good point. Hang on a sec. But the trouble is we don't distinguish. So, that's why I use the simple example, like to stubbing your toe. But here I might say to you, there's a very pretty cup. So we naturally assume my eyes are seeing a pretty cup. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
We don't think of it that way, but we would assume that. But that's not what's going on. My eye consciousness can only see shape and color. It's only capable of cognizing shape and color. And the millisecond my eyes go here, because I've programmed my mind with all my own tendencies and my thoughts and my opinions, in quicker than Google, out of my mouth will come the expression of a thought, which is in my mental consciousness, my interpretation of it. That's a pretty cup. And that's how we live our lives. From the second you wake up, you're out there, the mental consciousness is kicking in, and we're interpreting, Mr. Trump is this, and he is this, and she is that, and it is this. And that's our problem, because we don't realize it's not our senses. And second, we think what we're seeing is true, objectively.
Yeah, like,
get my point?
Just say like eye consciousness was step one, and then my reaction, oh, beautiful cup.
Yeah, that's
five.
But
I'm just
no, there's no step 5. That'd be millisecond, second step. I know what your point is, but so just keep listening, and the penny will drop.
Sure.
They work together. So the thing is, we can't, so senses are like dumb animals. We're not trying to change our sensory consciousness. We're not trying to go from shape and color to be anything else, but it's the mental consciousness where all the happiness is, and the mental consciousness where all the suffering is. So that's where we have to locate what's in the mental consciousness, because that's what we have to work on. That's all. So to make this distinction is important. That's all. So we'll keep talking. Yes. You have a question?
When I look at Lama Yeshe, I feel such positive energy.
That's right. Nice feeling. Yeah.
It's next to some people.
You have an ugly feeling.
Well, I feel there might be negative energy.
That's right. So then, a bit louder, darling, so they can all hear you.
Sounds just like energy and mind with it.
Energy and mind, that's a bit vague. You mean by energy? No, that's okay, okay. The way I would answer that is this. Our mental consciousness at the grosser level, it's all just thoughts and concepts, right? We live at a very gross level, but it's got much subtler levels of cognition. And we mightn't be in tune with that so much. But as you know, you can walk into a room where no one's talking, but we all say you can cut the atmosphere with a knife. No one's speaking, but they're all got angry thoughts. So it really proves we can be aware of that, isn't it? And the same with nice. So I think it's because our mental consciousness is capable at a subtler level of cognizing things that aren't evident to the senses and evident at the gross level. That's all. Which means what you're saying about energy. I think it's like that. Any other questions before I continue? Is there a tea break or we go for lunch break? Okay. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay, so let's go into details. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's look at the contents. Let's look at the contents of the mental consciousness and trying to understand. What's your name?
Indie. Indie.
Indie.
Kind of
Okay.
like Cindy, but without the
Okay.
C.
Oh, good on you. Yeah, I say, well, I'm Robin with an A, Robina. So you're Cindy without. You're Indie without. You're Cindy without the C. Okay. No, Indie. Okay. So Okay. So let's look. Okay. So that's where the workshop is, the thoughts and feelings and emotions. So divided into neurotic, ridiculous, I-based, fear-based, deluded ones that cause us suffering and cause us to harm others. And the second lot, the virtues, the valid ones that we're trying to cultivate. This difference. And this really is crucial to understand. This is not the neuroscientific model. It is not the psychological modern ones, not at all. They don't talk like this. So, okay. So basically, okay, now Buddha says everyone wants to be happy. No one wants to suffer. And basically all Buddha's doing is coming along and he says, you know what, guys, I found a method. That's all he's telling us. All he is saying is he's found a method of how to get happy and how to stop suffering, which sounds kind of pleasing. It sounds, oh, that sounds good, but surely is what we want. I mean, because if you look at everybody, the mice, the ants, the human, everybody's actions is driven by the thought, by the wish to be happy and not suffer, isn't it? Would you agree with that? Everybody's actions are driven by that. The assumption underlying every choice we make, every person we spend time with, every job we do, everything we eat, think about, is kind of like we're trying to work out how we're going to live our life, who we're going to spend time with, why? Because we want to be happy. I mean, it seems almost so simple. The concept is simple. So we then have to ask the question, is there a method? Because it doesn't seem to be, no matter how hard we try. So let's look at what Buddha's view about the mind and happiness is. So first of all, his Four Noble Truths, he's, basically saying this is his first teaching, and essentially he's answering it. He says, so basically he frames it in terms of he has found methods to stop suffering. He doesn't say he's found methods to get happy, which is just the same thing, which sounds more exciting. But he puts it as he's found methods to stop suffering. So the first step is surely you have to present what you think suffering is, and that's a vital one. What is suffering? And he presents 3 levels. And this is very necessary because, again, if we get to the transforming problems in the compassion wing, where you've got to be a suitable vessel, you can't begin to have proper compassion until you understand this first noble truth. Because at the moment, our compassion is very limited. So let's look at the first noble truth. There is suffering. There's 3 kinds. Don't worry about the 3 kinds yet. No, well, the first kind, we'll discuss this one. The first kind is called the suffering of suffering, which is the only one we posit, which is basically when the bad things happen. That's it. It's when the bad things happen. Now, we'll leave it for there now for that one. We'll forget the other 2 kinds of suffering. So then the second one is there are causes. So obviously, if you've got a problem, you have to first identify the problem, name it, and then surely you have to now identify the causes. Because if you don't understand the cause of the problem, how can you find the solution? And that's what he's done here. He says this is the cause. And then he says, now you can stop the suffering because now you've got the problem. You know what the cause is. So by you stopping the causes, you stop the problem. It's pretty obvious. Well, he's presenting his teachings like that. So his view, his findings are as follows. for just the first kind of suffering. So what are the causes? So the first kind of suffering, stubbing the toe, or the first kind of suffering, Gabriel's my mean, ugly husband, and he's rude to me, or he cheats on me. Let's just say, give an example. Okay, naughty Gabriel. So let's just say, so naturally, the way we feel, the way we are now caught up in our samsaric views of the mind, which we're going to describe, why are you suffering, Robina? Gabriel left me. So naturally, we assume Gabriel's the cause of my suffering. Why are you angry, Indy? The bed, I just stubbed my toe, so she's going to blame the bed, although we know that's pretty silly because the bed can't do anything. So that's how we feel. It's obvious. We have this view that suffering in me is caused by what's out there. And that, why are you happy, Robina? Oh, Gabriel's so kind to me. This is normal world. Nobody questions this. And this philosophy that happiness and suffering are caused mainly by the outside world is what Buddha would refer to as samsara. That's the samsaric philosophy. He says it's a wrong philosophy. He's not being moralistic. He says it's just mistaken. It's not valid. It's not true. We're trying to disprove it. Of course, it's so hard. He says the main causes of suffering and happiness are in here. So the first cause in relation to Gabriel is that, one, we came into this life, we've got some past karmic history together, and we meandered along, seemingly innocent, not knowing, and we bump into each other, and we fall in love due to karma, and then eventually he starts getting aversion to me, and he meets divine Indy, and he sneaks off. So, due to my past cheating on this person called Gabriel, could be 32 lives ago, he is now leaving me. So I'm the main cause of that. So, of course, we hear that in the West, and we all go mad. You mean I'm to blame? We'll go. But it's just the same as happiness. The cause of why Gabriel is kind to me is because I have been kind to him. This just sounds kind of, this view in the West just sounds, in the modern world, just sounds very corny, kind of silly, But this is the Buddha's analysis. This is observation. His consciousness goes back and back. Every millisecond of what he thought and did and said, so seeds in his mind. Mind goes back. We bump into each other. So so in other words, if everything that we think and do and say sow seeds in the mind that ripen as my experiences, every one of them has a cause. They're not random. How can they be random? It's impossible. When it's a natural law, we all understand that botany is a natural law. We might not understand it, but we know it's a law. And when there's a law, it's coherent and consistent every time. When you know the law of botany, you know you won't get a rose bush from an apricot seed. That's just not logical. So it's a natural law, and you can learn it. So same here, there's a Buddha. This is a shock to us. So if karma ripens, this is the first cause of my suffering, the first cause of my suffering. And this is one of the first applications of transforming problems. So 4 ways karma ripens. One is a type of rebirth. And, in this case, in our case, we people as humans, this is the fruit of incredibly good virtue, powerful non-killing karma, got us a human body. But that's not the total of it. Hitler's got one of those as well. People you don't like have got one of them as well. Second way that our karma ripens from our past actions is our mental tendencies, which cause us to do things and think things and say things, our mental tendencies. So this is the biggest shock, because as far as we're concerned, they come from mummy and daddy. No, not one of them. Not possible. It's a bizarre idea. No. They come from your past practice. So you bring them with you, programmed. Second one. Third one. This is now the karma of being cheated on. The third way our karma ripens is called experiences, similar to the cause. So the experience here of being cheated on, similar to the cause in me of having done it. I mean, not in a simplistic sense, it's highly complex, but the experience is similar to the cause, whether they're people that basically from the time we're born, we're very social beings, aren't we? We live in lives with other beings, rats and cockroaches and humans. And the way they see us and treat us is this karma. However we're seen or treated by others is this karma called experiences similar to the cause. Every millisecond of a day is one of those. And each of them is the fruit of an action like that I must have done in the past. This is the logic of it. Like, how can there be an apple growing if there's no apple seed, The third, within this life, the third way our karma ripens, fourth in general, but within this life, the third way our karma ripens is the way the physical environment impacts upon us. So using non-killing as an example, first result of non-killing result would be getting a human body as opposed to a dog body. Second would be the tendency to not kill. Now look at the world. Most people have a tendency to kill. They're humans, but they kill because they haven't purified all aspects of non-killing. This is a tragedy. So to have a no thought to not kill, that's kind of rare. 3, the result of non-killing is you won't get killed or die young. 4 is you'll be fat and healthy. Whatever you eat, the water, the air will not be polluted, and it will nourish you. You won't get sick. There's 4 examples of 4 results of 1. And every tiny action, every tiny thought can have any of these 4, you know. So the entire world is this natural. Think of it this way, that the world is like our garden. We know, if you even understand a basic idea of botany, that what's in your garden is what you put there or what you didn't pull out. So you own responsibility for it. So this is where the difference is so tremendous. We have no thought that what goes on in the outside world at us has got to do with us. We're the victims of good luck and bad luck, you know. It's very schizophrenic. Buddha says, no, your life is like your garden. Whatever is there, whatever you see, hear, taste, touch, smell, whatever people do to you, see about you, every tiny experience, as Lama Zopa says, is our own karmic appearance. I mean, this is helping us understand emptiness, just karma. It's a profound view. It's an amazing view. So, of course, what it brings is accountability. It stops being a victim, you know, poor me. So all I'm doing here is telling you how to transform problems by understanding karma. So if you really have that view, you know, it'll be painful, yeah, but straight away you'd learn, oh my God, look at my karma ripening. Then you make some choices, you know. Instead of, how dare, who do you think he is? He's evil. I've spent my life loving him. Look what he did to me. Poor me. I'm not being rude. Life is tough. Because we don't have that philosophical view in our brain, in our mind. We have the view of innocent victim. And his job is to make me happy. How dare he not make me happy? All these assumptions, our minds are riddled with all these ridiculous assumptions, you know. That's just the first cause of suffering, karma. And then the second is the delusions that triggered that action. And certainly now the delusions that arise in my mind, you know. 2 main causes of suffering. So his leaving me is one of the causes, but it's only secondary. It's sort of like that event is like a catalyst. The stubbing the toe is like a catalyst for the suffering. Due to some action in the past, Indy, when she kicks the bed by accident, pain arises. There's no person there. The bed has got no consciousness, so the bed didn't do it to her. But so some action in the past, she's experiencing the fruit of some negative karma, because it's called, and even more simply, every moment of unhappy feeling is the fruit of a negative action. And every moment of unhappy feeling, just in my mind, forget the event of cheating on me, just the mind, the unhappy feeling, that's the fruit of a negative karma of mine. And every moment of a happy feeling, a pleasant feeling is the fruit of a virtue of mine. That's even more fundamental. Are we communicating, people? This is just technical Buddhist teachings. It's just Buddhist techniques. That's it. Buddhist technology. Buddhist technology. This is Buddha's analysis. That's it. We can decide what we do with it, you know. And it's the interpretation. So in other words, what we're getting at is the way we suffer so badly now, because we have a series of assumptions. The view of ego is that somehow the view of an ego, the main thought of an I in the first place, its main voice is attachment. And it's this attachment's got multifaceted, you know, it's this hubris that somehow I only deserve good things. That's what drives us. I deserve only good feelings. And then the moment Gabriel hurts me, then the outrage of anger, I do not deserve bad things. That's how we respond. When bad things happen, what anger is saying, how dare he do that to me? I don't deserve it. I mean, the pain of that is unbearable, you know. And on a relative level, it's true. I've been very devoted to him. I hadn't cheated on him. So in that sense, I didn't deserve it in this life. But if you have the view of karma and you practice thinking this way, like those young Tibetan nuns I always mention, back in 2003 in New York, Richard Gere invited His Holiness to come, and he decided to work with a few, invite some ex-prisoners who'd done some spiritual work in prison, and people like me were invited who work with people in prison. So there are 20 former prisoners, you know, American, black, white, male, female, Puerto Rican, Mexican, whatever. And they all met His Holiness and had a wonderful time talking. And he also invited 2 young Tibetan nuns, Richard Gere. And these young women, you know, tortured and sexually abused in Tibet. And they were telling their experiences. And I find this is a really powerful example of how a person who has the view of karma would live their life. Karma for Tibetans has been in their bones since the 1700s, 700s, 1200 years, 1300 years. It's integrated into Tibetan minds, you know, totally integrated. In the same way that materialism is our natural view, that's their natural view. So since they're born, that's underpinned all of their way of living their lives. So when they know that they experience the fruits of their past actions, when good things happen, you rejoice in them. Don't just greedily eat them up like you're right. You rejoice that you practice virtue. And when the unhappy things happen, you recognize, you own them, you know. So as they said, at the end, there were tears. They weren't angry. There was no anger because they don't have the view, which anger is, how dare they do this to us? We don't deserve it. They don't have that philosophy in their head. You've got to realize that. It's not there because they have the view of karma. So that one of them there was tears, and she said, and of course, we had compassion for our torturers because we knew we must have harmed them in the past. And because we know they will suffer terribly in the future. So this is the basis of transforming problems. This, as I'm saying it, right here in the first teaching, in the first scope, this is the basis of being able to transform problems. But you can't do that straight away. It's too powerful. You've got to start working on your mind first and internalizing karma and practicing every day, you know, and knowing your mind. Go to middle scope and learn about attachment and aversion, which we haven't even going to talk about yet. This is the basis of transforming problems. That's the technique. Are we communicating? Okay. I think we have to have a break. Come on. I speak very loud and very fast and very intensive.
Question.
Okay, we'll do it. So I think after this, we have a little, just a wriggle, a break.
Yeah.
Have a cup of, there's no tea to offer people?
There's.
Yeah, have a cup of tea then and relax.
Okay.
Do you understand? I don't think anybody, I mean, does Jody shout like me? No, I don't think so. Does Lauren shout like me? I don't think so. Right. True? Isn't it true?
Yeah.
So you need a break, okay? Where's the question? Who's asking me a question? Where, darling? Where?
Oh, it was in the chat.
Was there? In the chat, tell me.
Oh, it must be my
Who's me? Oh, hi. Shuyang.
here.
Hello, sweetheart. Talk to me.
Hi. So it sounds like at the beginning of the lecture, you mentioned sensory pain and red flag pain. Are
Red
they
flag pain. What's that, darling?
you look at when you're driving
Oh,
the red flag,
Oh, the red light. The red, no, the red light.
red light.
In
Oh
the
yeah,
traffic.
red light.
In the
Sorry.
traffic and the red light comes. You're
Yeah.
expecting the green light. Yeah, go.
Yeah. So is red flag part of the sensory pain?
No,
Or
I wouldn't see in that case. I wouldn't. I was just trying to make the distinction. I'm making the distinction between sensory consciousness and mental. So I'm saying here, then you've got within the mind, in the mechanics of the mind, you have what type of mind called feeling, and you have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. So we can have an example of that in the senses. When you stub your toe, definitely your toe has there's a very unpleasant feeling in your sensory consciousness. But then I use the other example of another thing that would happen that would make you angry, and that would be the red light, and when you want the green light. But I just made the point that that is an external object and there is a sensory experience, but you wouldn't say there's a painful feeling in the senses from that one. I would say not.
okay,
You
so
understand?
husband leaving me or my colleague is being mean to me.
That's not
that-
sensory either. That's mental. That's truly
That's mental.
pure mental pain. You can have mental, you can have pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings in both the senses and the mental consciousness. So when the husband leaves you, that's not the senses, that's your mental consciousness, the agony and pain, and as well as the negative states of mind of jealousy and anger and all of those. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. And if I can summarize, both the physical pain and bad things happening to me is a result of your past karma. And
That's
how
right.
you react to it is going to decide your future karma.
No, that's exactly right, sweetheart. And so so the one of transforming problems is, given this view of karma and given the view of our mind, then we can find a way even now to keep myself sane and not go crazy now by learning to accept the karma and be happy. But also, because I'm dealing with it in such a powerful way, I'm purifying that karma and creating future happiness. Yes, that's right. Exactly right, Chia.
Thank you very much.
Exactly, darling. Let's have a 5-minute break. Well, I think it's good. Wriggle, stand up, have a cup of tea, something, 10 minutes maybe, and think about all this stuff. And I'll go and sit in my room for a second. See you 5 minutes, you people, okay? See you, sweethearts. Let me just put it on. Okay, it's good. Good, all good. Yeah, all good. Okay, people, let's continue. Okay, so now summarizing, mind is not physical. Mind is a beginningless and endless continuity of mental moments. It's totally personal to each of us. And whatever's in the mind, whatever our experiences are all because of our own. We are the creators of that. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, karma is like self-creation. That's really the essence. That's the essential point, that who we are and what we are is the fruit of what we have done in the past. And so there's no conspiracy theory of somebody doing it to us. You know, it's very consoling, I think. I mean, I know when I first heard the teachings of karma, I thought it was great. I just loved it, you know, because it tells us that we're in charge. It's difficult. Instead of good luck and bad luck, which is the commonest way we see the world. Everything's just good luck and bad luck, which means no cause, which is completely insane, you know. So, okay. So transforming problems is a teaching it's kind of the more advanced level of how to cultivate bodhicitta. There's two methods, you know, there's two methods of getting bodhicitta. One is that I forget the names. What are there? 6.6 causes and one effect. The other one is the more dramatic, the more powerful one, which is this approach, which includes this approach, the one of exchanging self for others. You know, all the so-called lojong teachings, transforming, you know, mind training, basically. I mean, all of Buddhism is mind training, but this particular approach, and of course, it's all expressed perfectly in the most extreme way in that simple little text by Langri Tangpa called the 8 Verses, you know. So everything we've said so far is background that enables us, when we hear this advice in these verses, we know what to do. Without the background, without junior school and high school, without understanding karma and what the mind is and what a delusion is and how it works, you can't do it. It's just you just don't know how to do it, you know. It sounds, in fact, shocking. So to increase our understanding of how to do this, let's go back to now the middle scope. And this is really the crucial one, not just understanding karma, but now we have to understand the mind and how it works. We've been talking a bit about that. But again, remember, mind is in general, you divide into sensory and mental. Sensory consciousness is that part of our mind that functions through the medium of the body to have certain, you know, experiences. Shape and color is what is cognized by eye consciousness. Sound is what is cognized by ear consciousness. Taste. This is the very limited capacity of the senses, but they're tremendously powerful for us within samsara, because we all want happy feelings. We all want happiness, specifically happy feelings. We all don't want suffering, particularly suffering or unpleasant feelings, you know. And so because we have this body made of the senses, living in a world made of the 5 sense objects, this is the function of, this is samsara, then we've completely are living according to and totally believing in a system to get happy that Buddha says is fraught with problems because it ends up even just bringing more suffering. So the way now, the main way now we employ and we think is the method to get happy is really, I mean, first and foremost is to get happy feelings in the body, isn't it? Happy feelings in the body. So that means we have to have contact with certain sensory objects. Well, it does, I mean, it seems like the most vivid ones, aren't they, as the tactile. I mean, that's where the sexual pleasure comes from. That's tactile consciousness, isn't it? The most powerful one. Food. It's called taste, but that's because, but it's got a tactile component because it's physical, isn't it? It's the same, you know. So and it's true. This is where we really have to, again, analyze the different parts of the mind in the different experiences we have. So just keep it simple and use an example of something inanimate like a cake in terms of happy feelings now. So when we know And this is where we have to understand attachment. So attachment is one of the three poisons. It's a deluded state of mind. It's a neurotic state of mind. It's an affliction. It's a misconception. It leads us up garden paths and it runs the universe. Effectively, it is the main cause of suffering in this world we live in. So Buddha's saying, you know, so we'd better understand it. It's in the mental consciousness. It is in the mental consciousness. So now, cake is an object of the senses. We can see that. All the objects of the art, all the sensory objects, the music, the cake, the body, you know. So there's the cake. And we call it chocolate cake. So there's a bunch of things going on in our mind, right? You've got your eye consciousness working. First of all, it's the mind. Where does even wanting the cake come from? That's attachment. So there you are feeling dissatisfied. One of the key energies of attachment, the starting point underneath it is a sense of dissatisfaction. I don't have enough. Something's missing. This is the greatest ache and pain we all live in. This is the energy of attachment from having practiced attachment for countless lifetimes. There's a feeling of never having enough, not having enough, always something missing. And when we have serious attachment problems, that's what the suffering is, you know. So then there's this dissatisfaction. So then you think, oh, what am I going to have? Then suddenly cake arises in your mind. And now immediately attachment kicks in and it shifts from dissatisfaction to excitement and anticipation, right? I think that's the nicest part of attachment is anticipating the cake, isn't it? Anticipating the date with Gabriel, first time. I mean, look at the joy. The anticipation is so heavenly, you know. So then all your technical bits of your mind, you know, your intention, your concentration, your good memory, you know where the chocolate cake is, they all work overtime to get the cake, right? Attachment's driving you. Why? Think of it, because you're going to get pleasure. The aim of the cake is to get it in the mouth. That's not even the goal. The aim of the goal is to get it in the mouth, not in the ear. You don't make a mistake in trying to put your cake in there. You know where it belongs. Because it's going to trigger a pleasant feeling. That's the bottom line. Because we're craving the pleasant feeling. You say you're craving the cake, yeah, but it's the feeling. So you finally get the cake. Now there's the cake on the plate. Now your eye consciousness, that's all mental. That's all mental, going berserk. All the mechanics part of your mind, the intention, the concentration to go to get it, the discrimination. When you go to the shop, you can distinguish the difference between the shape and color of the carrot cake and the shape and color of the chocolate cake. And you buy the chocolate cake and you bring it home. It's on the plate and now we're ready, right? All that's mostly mental. And now we're anticipating the pleasure. So you put the cake in the mouth, and it's true. It does trigger a happy feeling. There's no argument. Buddha does not argue. But where's the problem? This is the tragedy. Attachment is always there driving it. Attachment is this little hungry, little poor, dissatisfied little vampire. Then this hungry, greedy little child, and then this craving, this happy feeling, and it's all coming from the internal. It's coming from the feeling of not being enough. The more you feel empty, the more you feel not enough, the more you feel like you're nothing, the more hungry is your attachment. Attachment is like an emotional hunger, you know. So then, and because you've got a habit to eat cake, the cake's in the mind all the time. They say one of the signs of attachment is when you think about the object when it's not there. Food's one of our worst ones, isn't it? So you get it in the mouth, the point of the exercise, and it does trigger happy feelings. But why? What happens? Attachment's so powerful, leading this entire experience, and it's right there, and it's hungrily, and it drives your hand to get in the mouth. And what happens? Get in the mouth, pleasure is triggered, and that second, attachment says, sorry, Robina, not enough. Put another mouthful in. And then it goes down there to hell, isn't it? Keep waiting for more pleasure to come, but the tragedy is from the first mouthful, the pleasure diminishes until you want to vomit. And that's how we get pleasure in this universe. Are we communicating?
Yeah.
And we're completely junkies. Attachment is junkie mind. It's just a question of degree and a question of the object, you know. No wonder we're all so distressed. This is suffering. So then we think, well, what's Buddha's plan here? What's he want us to do? I'm not even allowed to have cake. No, you can have your cake and eat it too by changing your mind. So, as Amazoba says, and this is a tragedy in our culture, the happy feelings, both sensory and even in the mental, but the sensory are the more immediate, aren't they? When they're driven by attachment, they can't grow. They can only diminish. And that's the real suffering on our planet if we are addicted to sensory objects, addicted to money, addicted to food, addicted to sex, addicted to video games, whatever maybe see, video games is more mental, isn't it? There's no senses involved in video games. There's no pleasure in the typing. It's all mental, isn't it? Maybe the vision of the different things on the screen, but it's mainly it's a craving in the mind for something mental, isn't it? It's very interesting. But that happiness, those happy feelings, which are valid happy feelings, but they can't grow, they can only get less. And as my mother used to say, I mean, this is a tragedy, my mother used to say, and we all know it's a saying, Bobsy, she'd say, because I was attached to my food, and I'd hear her say it, the more you get, the more you want. That's the suffering of attachment. But we kind of know it, and that's what the distress is, but we conveniently forget it. And the cake that causes us to vomit, which is the cake that we think is the cause of the happiness, which did trigger happiness, is also the cake that causes us to vomit. But the next day we forget all about the vomit and try to have the happy feeling again. And we have been bashing our heads against brick walls for countless eons, Buddha says. That's attachment. That's the suffering of attachment. And that's the grossest level of attachment. So we can see it's a suffering of the universe. Alone, we can see it's a suffering. Forget aversion, forget anger, forget everything. That is suffering. It's unbearable to think about. So we think, well, what's his solution? Well, it's difficult. He says he's found a method to get happy. He's found a method to have happy feelings that last and that don't depend on cakes. But that, of course, is highly advanced happiness. You've got to know about it first and slowly work towards it. And this is where, he doesn't say it like this, but if you read all the yogis and experiences of the mind and the pleasure that you're capable of experiencing, even just getting single point of concentration. I mean, Lama Yeshe he waxes lyrical about the joy that our mind has the capacity to experience just by getting some samadhi, which most of us won't get because you've got to go to the mountains and give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so in other words, when you look at the Buddha's teachings, the way, and it's coming from the Hindus, what they have discovered is that the natural state of a mind that is unencumbered by even some level of delusions is bliss. I mean, please hear those words very directly. Bliss. Well, Lama's amazing. Lama learned the most perfect words on the planet. He started learning English. He spoke the most perfect words. He'd say rapture, ecstasy, bliss. I mean, they almost sound embarrassing to say, don't they? Who has rapture? Who has ecstasy? Come on. Do you understand? That's your natural state of your mind. And why we don't have it is because we're complete junkies. And it's just called ordinary attachment. People. Oh, so it's hard to give it up. Of course it is. So what Buddha says is this. Hey guys, you think happy feelings come from getting what attachment wants. No. Happy feelings are what you get when you give up attachment. Not give up the cake, give up attachment. And that's the hard job. So that's what has to underpin our practice. And that's slow job, giving up attachment. You're not going to finally give it up until you realize emptiness, So slowly. But we've got to understand it technically. This is very technical. So when you eat the cake, there's a bunch of things going on. There's attachment, which is mental. Attachment is not a function of the senses. There's nothing wrong with the senses. As Lama Yeshe would always say to us, because you can see all the guilt in the neurotic Western rubbish hippies, full of guilt, not allowed to have pleasure. He says, you people don't even know how to be happy. You know how to be miserable, And he used to say, the more pleasure, the better. And that sounds like a sin, I mean, that's why I think the Catholics, you're not allowed to have pleasure until you get God's permission. You've got to get married and have a sacrament. I mean, excuse me. Do you understand? We're so neurotic, you know. So attachment is a mental consciousness, and it's a neurotic state of mind. It's a deluded state of mind. And why it's deluded, it's a great word in English. It's deluded because it's not in touch with reality. In other words, the simple function of attachment, besides all the emotional hunger, the feeling drama of it, what it's literally doing when your eye consciousness lands on that plate and you do recognize, you know, triangle, brown, and then your mental conscious kicks in and goes chocolate cake. And also because you're a good chocolate cake person, you can identify it even as a good chocolate cake. That's all technical and that's all fact. That's not a problem, that's fact. But the problem comes in because of the feeling of lacking in here, and then that attachment dumps onto that cake all this, a whole bunch of qualities in the cake that the cake doesn't possess, which is deliciousness. So the general function of all neuroses, all delusions, is they exaggerate the qualities of something. So attachment exaggerates deliciousness. Aversion exaggerates ugliness. Pride exaggerates self-importance. Low self-esteem exaggerates unself-important. You understand? They've all got that particular function. As Lama Zopa says, they all decorate on top of what is there, layers upon layers upon layers of characteristics that just don't exist there. I mean, this is profound, you know. That's why at least when you're caught up in the craving for the cake, first step in giving up this is why the first scope is so important. The first scope is all about controlling your behavior. Vows are not about the mind, they're about behavior, your body and speech. How can you possibly control anger or attachment if you can't control the servants of anger and attachment, which is your hands? Do you understand my point? Your body. So the very first level of practice is control the body. Keep your hands in the lap. You can't, the attachment's too hard to control. The anger's too hard to control, but at least shut the mouth. At least keep your hands there and let the cake stay on the plate. So hard, but that's the first step. It's just like anybody in the world who's an alcoholic. Nobody would expect you to give up attachment to alcohol while continuing to drink alcohol. We all know the first step is stop drinking it. Control your behavior. That's what it means. It's powerful. So you've got to make firm, so just by giving up the attachment to the cake, you've got to make firm decisions. I will not eat the cake. I will, you know, that's why going on a diet, it's difficult. I just told Jody and Mike I went on a diet a couple of years ago. Since I saw you last, I've lost 25 pounds, or maybe 30 by now. And I went on a very special diet called eating less. After 50 years of being a Buddhist, I decided I'd better practice what Buddha says. Control my behavior and keep my hands in the lap. It's the hard, but I mean, it's possible. It's just that we don't think it's possible, you know. Do you understand? It's hard work every day keeping it stable. It means you just have to put less food in your mouth. Which means, you know, that's attachment, always exaggerating, always thinking about it. And then, of course, when you see the object, we know what it's like. And I'm not a junkie, but it's like being a junkie. When you see that, when you're like, especially if you're distressed, you know. For me, it always happens in the afternoon. I don't know about you guys, but it's in the afternoon. And suddenly you call this, what's missing? You go to the kitchen and you just you can't resist. You just sort of like you're this little junkie and you feel so distressed. You feel, I mean, this real distress, isn't it? That is the pain of attachment. We all understand it. So that's why at least you can be happy that you're not born with attachment to kill or steal or harm people. Can you imagine that attachment? I've got a friend on death row in Kentucky. Mitchell, who's a Buddhist, he's amazing. And one of the guys, I know him, he used to come to the classes when I'd go there. He said, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. Can you imagine being born with that karma? That's just called attachment. Thinking about it all the time is called attachment. Wanting to harm people. Can you imagine that? At least we just, you know, cake doesn't mind. Shoving in the cake doesn't mind. Cake's not going to complain, you know. Do you understand me? But the suffering of attachment, this is the grossest level of attachment. We really ought to sort of, you know, have compassion for ourselves. And this, we can see it drives us. But of course, it's multifaceted. Attachment to get what we want. Attachment to things being the way I want them. Control freak, that's attachment. Possessiveness, that's attachment. Expectation, that's attachment. Craving to be seen and heard and admired by others, that's attachment. I mean, it's utterly pervasive, you know. That's why they talk about the eight noble, not the eight noble, the eight worldly dharmas. Again, in the Mahayana path, it's a more pervasive, more subtle level of attachment that runs our mind 24 hours a day. So don't underestimate it. Are we communicating, people? So working on this, understanding this in junior school and high school, having the view of karma, now you get to want to accomplish bodhicitta. And so transforming problems is in the framework of wanting to cultivate bodhicitta. So it's a very different, powerful approach, you know. Are we understanding?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please do.
So it's not the cake that's the problem, but
That's
rather
right.
the inability to control my reaction to
That's
of seeing the
well, it's
cake.
two things. It's the exaggeration in our mind of the deliciousness of the cake and the exaggeration of its power to make me happy. And then indeed the inability to control our mind and control our body. That's right. Exactly.
So I have a follow-up question.
Yes,
So let's say I see the cake and I see myself reacting to the cake,
that's right. Yeah.
but then I stop for a minute and I say,
Yeah.
okay, I will not eat the cake because I do it on automatic mode.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
I choose
No, good.
to eat the cake.
It's a really good point, Rami. So let's discuss that one. So the very first level of practice is this one we're talking about. Just control yourself. Leave it on the plate because the attachment's too difficult. But then if you get, by the time you get some kind of control over your mind and you're moving through the stages of practice, and now you begin to get to the Mahayana level, that's where you can do that one. That's a more advanced level. So you've got to do each step at a time. If your attachment to cake isn't that strong, then you can do that pretty quickly. But if you're a real junkie for cake, you can't afford to play because once you start putting it in the mouth, you can't control. So once you've got some control, now you get to the Mahayana one, and that's where motivation counts. That's where you change. You can decide before you shove the cake in, you can decide, I'm going to eat this cake so I can be healthy, so I can be a benefit to others. And you have more control and you have it. And because of your positive motivation, it's even a virtuous action. So yes, but you've got to know where you're at. It's all to do with your level of capability. You see what I'm saying? No, it's a very good point.
Yeah, thank you.
That's exactly what we can. So that's why we can have your cake and eat it too. It's a good way to put it. You understand? It's a good point, Rami.
Thank you.
You've got to know where you're at, you know. You just got to know your capability. That's as simple as that. And food's so difficult because you've got to have it, you know, some level of it. Anyway, so questions, yeah, go, Jan. Yeah.
To me, what comes to mind is, I guess on a more gross level, having the cake in front of me and not eating it
Yeah.
is putting off gratification. Can get.
Are you hearing what she's saying? Okay, speak a bit louder.
Yeah.
Go on.
That delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification.
Yeah, which is, I give you a Milky Way at 9 o'clock in the morning and you've eaten a quarter of it by 3.
Oh, I see. So go on then. So what's the point here?
So how does that fit into the more focused discipline of saying, here's the cake, I'm not going to have the cake, or
Okay, the point of all this, okay. The point is here, I think when we talk in the West, the gratification one, the discussion there is sort of having some control, but it's not that virtuous. It's still attachment. You're just controlling your. I have a bit now and a bit later. But the real way to do it as a practice is to not want to blindly follow your craving and to want to purify your craving, and you want to question and say, no, it's an exaggeration. It's not as delicious as I think. You're really doing analysis as well. So if that's okay, as long as the motivation's clear and you're putting wisdom into it. And again, the one about giving on, I mean, usually the way we do this is when we go on a diet, but going on a diet is not virtue unless your motivation is pure. It's just more samsara. You know, as Lama Yeshe says, you people are ridiculous. You can't work out whether you're more attached to your body or the food. And it's true, isn't it? It's the same problem, you know. So we do it with a good motivation and get some wisdom from it. Do you understand?
yes, thank you.
So again, let's go explicitly a little bit. No, a bit more. So attachment is there. So the three poisons, so the root delusion, the root misconception, as we all know, is this primordially deep assumption of a real, solid, separate, pointable, set in stone me. That's the one. That's Maripa, ignorance, unawareness, this primordial ignorance that believes in an intrinsic, inherent, independent me. I mean, if attachment's hard enough, this is like impossible. We can't even identify it, you know, because it's so primordial. That's the one that is underpinning everything. And then attachment is like, if you think about it, is its main voice. The craving to get what, you know, the craving to fill up that feeling of being empty, because that's the irony of all these delusions. They make us totally miserable. They're the symptoms of a completely miserable person who feels like as big as a pinhead, you know. So this attachment is this craving to fill up the gaping hole, you know. And now the third one is called aversion. Now the bare bone states of mind are attachment, this over-exaggeration, this constant hunger, emotional hunger, and then aversion, which is, so attachment, okay, attachment exaggerates the deliciousness and it kind of drives us to get something because we feel something's missing. And then when attachment doesn't get what it wants, because it's the driver, and that happens 1,000 times a day, that's the arising of aversion. So the second you stub your toe, you didn't think as you got out of bed. Indy didn't think as she got out of bed that she has attachment to not have pain, but she did have it. And that's why the shock of stubbing your toe, how dare, because your attachment just got shocked because it doesn't like miserable feelings. So then so aversion arises because an unhappy feeling was triggered. And aversion, the mild level of aversion, we all have it every day, annoyed, upset, frustrated, irritated, annoyed. Everybody says those words. They are aversion. They are mild anger. They are the response when attachment is thwarted. The tea doesn't taste the right way. The hubby doesn't listen to you properly. The tiny events, we never pay attention to them. You don't go to your therapist and say, oh, I got annoyed today. She'll tell you to shut up and go home and wait till you want to kill your husband. And that's our problem in the West, I think. We wait till the dramas happen before we work on our minds. But we have to see our minds much more subtle, moment by moment, you know. But most of the time we're just living in a dull, vague, most of daily life for most of us, we're so fortunate. Things go reasonably well, you know. We're not on the street. We're not in prison. We're not junkies. We're not totally poor. We're not living in total agony. So we just float along, have our breakfast, clean the house, do the dishes. We just float along. We're not paying any attention to karma. We're not paying any attention to our mind. We're just using up our virtue, really. And only when the problem comes do we notice anything, you know? Do you understand, people? So we've got to be far more conscious of our mind, you know, of what's going on. I mean, karma's playing out the whole time, but the only time we ever talk about karma is when the bad things happen. I've never yet had any person ever ask me the question, Robina, why do good things happen? We never ask that question, which proves we assume it's my bloody right to have good feelings every second. It's only the problem is the bad ones. I mean, we're just so blind, you know, we're just floating along. Every second the bad thing is not happening, you should be in bliss. It's the fruit of your virtue. Every time you look out your window, I mean, I was staying at Jodie's and Mike's, and you look out the kitchen window and it's really pleasing. There are trees and bushes. It's a pleasing appearance. That's the result of virtuous karma, that you have a pleasing environment in front of you. You should be blissing out every time you see it. Every time you listen outside and it's quiet. That's because of not disturbing anybody due to past negative karma. The taste is pleasing. The kettle boils when you're feeling you want it. You should be in bliss every second. Ordinary experiences. They're the fruit of your virtue every second. And as long as you don't think about it and don't offer it and don't see it as empty, you take it for granted, which means you're just pissing it down the toilet. Excuse me. You're using it up. You're taking it for granted. It's like you've got a garden full of veggies and you just assume it's normal to have a garden full of veggies. You forgot that you planted them. So you eat them up every day, never thinking to grow more, and you wonder why they all run out. Are we communicating? So the more we have the view of karma, the more we take responsibility, the more we know our mind, even just attachment and aversion, then we are ready for that moment. The coffee didn't taste right. We went for lunch yesterday and the miso soup wasn't so hot. Straight away, my attachment to having hot soup was offended. Do you understand? Then we both of us, we decided we wouldn't send it back. We'll just enjoy it. So we transformed a problem. So start with the baby problems. So we decided, Jody did probably too. I decided, no, good enough. I'll be happy. That's transforming a problem. Do you understand? Simple. Start with the small ones, please. Don't wait for Gabriel to leave you. Do you understand? It's like anything, it's training. If you train with the baby things throughout the day, by the end of the day, you won't be stressed. We wonder why we're stressed, because stress is the interplay between attachment not getting what it wants and the arising of aversion. You understand me? Catch your mind. Oh, it's fine. Miso's fine. Not out of passiveness and laziness and can't be bothered. Oh, I don't want to say I want it hot. They might upset. They mightn't like me. That's another attachment. Sometimes it's appropriate, to say, please make this miso soup hot. It's catching your mind every second. Start with the baby things, Rejoice every day. Remember karma every day. Remember impermanence every day. And then you deal with the problem when it arises. And it's gone in a second. Otherwise, you build it up. You get annoyed. We go on, oh, that Japanese restaurant, don't go there again. Their miso soup's cold. And you're resentful. And we do it all the time. We live like this, criticizing, finding fault. The politicians, this, Mr. Trump, this. No wonder by the end of the day we're stressed. You understand? That's transforming problems every day, people. Catch it. Have a positive thought. Instead, well, Mr. Trump, he looks clean today. You understand? I mean, he must have ironed his shirt, or whoever ironed his shirt. Probably not, what's her name? What's her name? Melania. Probably she didn't iron his shirt. Maybe he irons his own shirt. Who knows? I mean, it's sort of like we all know the rubbish. We already know what kind of politician he is. So stop going on about it, please. Yeah, go and demonstrate if you want to. That's all right. Nothing wrong with a positive attitude. And no expectation that it'll change. And remembering, he is our karmic appearance. Own him. We never do that. Like we don't deserve. Who the hell do you think you are? Whatever you see in front of you, honey child, you created it. That's a really good point. That's transforming problems straight away. Do you understand?
No, can you elaborate on that?
Elaborate on that one. The politician one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I understand. Okay.
That he's ours.
He's what? Say it again. What? He's
Because
what?
we voted for, I don't understand what you mean.
Say a bit louder. I can't hear.
Because we voted for Trump, I don't understand why, Trump is ours. Why?
Oh, I see. Okay, I get your point. Okay. Taking the view of karma as our view in this room here. Buddha might be speaking a load of rubbish, but we're taking his view here. What's your name? Eric. Okay, so Eric, due to his virtuous karma in a past life, non-killing in particular, at the time of his previous death, one of his non-killing karmic seeds was triggered that then programmed him to get a human body to come to this particular mummy and daddy. First step. Second one, and that's due to your past virtue. Your mummy and daddy just had sex. That's all they did. You created the cause to go to them. That's the first one. So you own the parents. Straight away, you own the parents. Whatever parents they are, you've got a strong karmic history with those two people. And even before you stopped breathing, a few weeks before you came to their womb, her womb, one of your karmic seeds was triggered. And it's because of a very strong karmic connection with those particular people who are your parents in this life, that particular seed was triggered. That's yours due to your past action. Then within the second way your karma ripens, at that time, all the seeds from your past tendencies, mental tendencies, your personality was already kind of formed and ready to go. All all your mental tendencies. You're being good at football, good at music, good at mathematics, good at anger, good at kindness, whatever your mind is, whatever your personality is. Do you understand me? All of those seeds were triggered at that point, ready for your personality to burst into life when you hopped into in your mummy's womb. Third, all the karmic seeds that will then cause you to meet the different people and sentient beings and rats and cockroaches and politicians and Mr. Trumps and lousy wives and divine people that you have met up in your life until now. You have a karmic connection with those people. Every one of them is not an accident. That includes your wife, your husband, your dog, the people who are kind to you, your boss, people who like you, people who don't like you, and the country you live in and the place you live in and the politicians you have. Every person who appears in front of you, everything that is appearing in front of you, you must have created the cause to have that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. And even the physical world itself, whether you're fat and healthy or thin or sick or food harms you, food nourishes you, even that is the fruit of your past actions. So your entire life, the physical world you occupy, how it impacts upon you, the people you meet and who you see and who touches your life and how it impacts upon you, your own tendencies and your own body itself. You're the creator of all of that. That's the Buddha's view.
And the only problem I struggle with is that
Which aspect?
when I think of, say, someone like Trump and
Yeah.
say that his previous virtue caused him to be born.
Oh, okay. So okay.
How did it fall?
Okay, let's talk about Mr. Trump's karma. First, I was talking about Eric's karma. So that's an explanation of Eric, right? Are we communicating so far? Eric, are we on the same case? Okay, so now we have a person called Mr. Trump. So let's just say, okay, okay, so it would, okay, so Mr. Trump, he's got a human body. So the same as you at the time of his past death, one of his virtuous karmic seeds, because we've all got countless of all of them, was triggered, and that programmed him to go to his mummy's womb and that particular father. Second, all the mental tendencies he's got. So let's just say what he appears to be is true. He seems to look like he lies and cheats and is arrogant. Let's just say they're true. I mean, because, we have to keep our minds open. Maybe he's got some good qualities in there as well. Let's assume that. So that's his mind. They're his habits from the past. The third one is called experiences similar to the cause. Now, in his case, we mightn't all meet 1,000 million people and have 1 million people all have opinions about us, but clearly he's got strong karma with a lot of people. Would you agree with that? A lot of people know him, a lot of people like him, and a lot of people don't like him. A lot of people who have a life that like famous film stars, millions of, so that all the way people see him. Every person who likes him, who believes every word he says, and they say that's because he has spoken the truth to them and been kind to them and been useful to them in whatever past life, could be 1,000 lives ago. They're all the ones who like him and who trust him and who believe his words. Second, the other group, people who can't stand the sight of him, can't even bear his name, and don't believe a single word he says, and only see bad in him due to heavy duty karma of harming and stealing and lying from those people in the past. Something like that. Are we communicating?
I have to ponder.
Of course. I mean, honey child, this view is like a joke in the modern world. It's like, it's like laughable. It's not the view of the creator, and it's not the view of materialism. This is Buddha's view. It's been around for a few thousand years, and just I'm spelling it out in a down-to-earth way, Do you understand? Okay, Eric. Okay, time for lunch here. Nearly time for lunch. Lunchtime? Already lunchtime. So you people, we're going off for lunch now. So Shuyang and Nicole and who's that? Julondre. Hello, Julondre. And there's Amelia and there's Beth and there's Rami, and that's it. And I'll look forward to seeing you in how long? Hour and a half? Two hours.
2 o'clock. We're back.
2 whole hours. It takes us that long to eat lunch, does it? Yeah. I'm not complaining. Yeah.
That's why we don't have any tea breaks.
Oh, okay. So we're back in an hour and 3/4. All right, an hour and 3/4. So please enjoy wherever you are, and I'll see you all very soon. So we just dedicate thinking what we've done so far, all these thoughts we've had in response to the things I'm saying, and we're all thinking about it, including me. So we're going to think any virtuous thoughts we've had, and any seeds we've planted in our mind, where we nourish these seeds, so we can continue to practice, work on ourselves so we can be a benefit to ourselves and others. Jang Chup Sem Chog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa, Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne, Gondu, Pelba Shog. That's it. See you in Aaron Three Quarters, you dearest people. Goodbye. Hi. Hi, everybody. All right. What time is it? Good. Okay. Not quite here yet, are we? Almost. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll have skinny cushion.
Maybe this one.
No, a skinny one behind my back.
Oh,
That one there, that one there, that one there. That's it. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right,
This
everybody.
is good.
Good. This is perfect. Yeah, totally perfect. Okay. So here we are again, thinking about looking at the Buddhist view of the mind, why things happen, understanding that the way the mind works, so that we can then be qualified, be capable of dealing with the dramas of life without losing the plot. Basically, that's really the point, you know. I mean, this is really an everyday job. It's every day we've got problems. Everybody has anxiety and worries and fears every day, normal, ordinary people, you know. So it's like every day we need to try and do this job. So, you know, this morning we looked at the kind of the big picture in Buddhism, where this teaching fits. It's in the more advanced levels, and we talked about karma, the idea of karma and the mind not being physical, and continuity of consciousness and reincarnation. All of this is the basis for understanding what's going on. But there's another whole way of approaching it for people who've never heard of Buddhism. You know, it's a very practical thing. It's a very practical issue. When we understand that we have the power to change the way we see things. And everybody can understand those words. You know, that's not religious, that's practical. And so there's a saying in Buddhism that if you can, I think, I forget exactly, but something like, if you can change something, nothing wrong, please change it. And we can see in one day in our life, there must be 57 things out there that we wished we could change. The politics, the thing, the war here, that there, the brother, the sister, the husband, the house, always something we have a problem with, which we wish we could change. So now if you can change it, there's no problem. Please change it. But then, and as they say, but if you can't, why worry? Now that's too heavy for us. We think that'd be ridiculous. Why worry? As if it's that easy, you know? But that's also, it's a question of practice. So, or another way to put it is this: if you can change it, fine. But what if you can't? Then what? That's the point. So what do you do instead? And it's such a practical issue, you know. What do you do instead? Well, if you can't change the thing, if it can't be the way you want it to be, and as I said, that's 50 times a day, if we realize that the response in our mind is really important, that's the source of whether we're happy or suffering. We think it's whether you get what you want or not that makes you happy or suffer. So we think, well, if you don't get what you want, if the thing doesn't change, then we think we don't have no choice but to suffer. But that's the point. We don't have to have that. We can change our mind. And even the Buddha's point, as I've been saying, and we can prove this to be true, that even the Buddha's point is that what goes on in our mind, not what goes on the outside, is the main player in our lives as to whether we're happy or suffering. Initially, that sounds very shocking. We can't believe it's true. But once we start to look at it and practice, we can see it's true. And this is not, you don't have to be religious to do this, it's not Buddhist. It's nothing to do with karma. This has nothing to do with karma. It's such a practical issue, you know. You can change the way. In other words, when you realize that even anger and attachment and jealousy and fear are mental responses to something, they're mental. And if it's mental, it's our mind. And if it's mental, it comes down to being a series of thoughts. So in other words, if you articulated that response, it would be a series of thoughts. So, I mean, we all have examples like this and we all do our best, you know. If you can change it, great. But if you can't, then what? You change your mind. In other words, you change your interpretation of it. And this is extremely difficult because we think, you know, if it's like a war in Iran, what do you mean? We say, what do you mean change your interpretation? Because what our trouble is, we can't distinguish between the anger and the fear in our mind and the fact that it's a war in Iran. We think they're the same thing. In other words, when you stub your toe, like I talked before, we can't distinguish between the simple fact of the pain in the toe and the anger that arises in our thoughts. We assume the anger is a natural response to the pain in the toe. We assume fear and anger are a natural response to seeing that there's a war somewhere or a bad politician. And what we've got to realize is they're different events. There is a fact out there. There is pain in the toe. There is a war in Iran. There might be a lousy politician. They're facts. But what we've got to realize is that our mind is full of all these opinions about it. And that's what we have to look at. So this is what sometimes it's really good to show really extreme examples. Oh, look, that, darling. Thank you so kind. Delicious. Thank you.
And I give you something to put the tea.
Okay, sweetheart. Well done. We can do that right now. You can take it out right now.
You want me to take it out right
Just let me
now?
have the tea. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you
Whoops.
so much. Thanks, sweetheart.
It's very hot.
Perfect. Yeah.
Very hot.
So there's one example I always use, 'cause it's so utterly extreme, you know. A woman called Sunny, an American woman. I knew her. She was she's dead now. She died last year. She was there she was. She wrote a memoir that I heard about her. She was in prison for like 17 years. So she was this hippie with a hippie husband and hippie kids in the 70s, hitching in Florida. They got picked up by two guys. The two guys got stopped by the police. The two guys killed the police and blamed the hippies. So she and her husband finally found guilty and were put on death row, okay, for killing two policemen. And they weren't guilty. So I mean, if you can think of anything worse than that, like stubbing your toe is one end of the spectrum, being accused of murdering two policemen and waiting for being executed is another extreme, right? Can you imagine, you know? So the thing is, this woman, she wasn't Buddhist. She didn't talk about karma. She didn't have faith in religion. She was this very practical woman. And I would say, based on her response, and I'm going to tell you about it, is that she had this incredible emotional intelligence. What she discovered was she realized what we've just been saying, that yes, this event, being accused of murdering two policemen, which happened not to be true, is a fact. She was on death row. It's a fact. Then what happened was she's in a cell on her own the whole time. They gave her a Bible, right? She's this Jewish girl. They give her a Bible. She's in this cell on her own, being found guilty, being sentenced to death. Husband eventually got executed. She went to the execution. She was there, and his head burst into flames. I mean, talk about medieval. Her children, for example, 3 kids or 2 kids, I can't remember. She at least they were living with her own parents. The parents died in a car accident, so she lost her kids, lost her parents. Husband was executed. She's on death row and she's innocent. I mean, it's all too much to bear for normal people, you know. And I know enough people in prison, so I work with people in prison who've been wrongly accused of much less than that, who go mad. We know ourselves, even the smallest accusation of something we didn't do, we know it's unbearable. We know it's like unbearable. So this woman, I still can't get over her. She was amazing. She said, she wrote a memoir. I didn't read it, but we would talk. And because she came out of prison eventually and went to live in Ireland, working with people who've been wrongly accused who came out of prison. She was wonderful. So she said she was in this cell on her own. And she said, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything. And even to get to that point, I think that's some kind of practical resignation. Usually we rant and rave and rant and rave and raging against something that's wrong, wishing it would be different. And why isn't it different? And why are they doing this to me? And in the end, you can do nothing to change it because you're just so crazy, you know. But she said, finally, I realized I couldn't change anything. But she said, they couldn't take my mind from me. I like this example because she's not religious. She had this intelligence. So she said, at one point she said, I decided I am not a prisoner. I'm a monk. I am not in a cell. I'm in a cave. So those thoughts, I mean, if you think about it, all she did, speaking simply, technically, what she did was decide to see it differently. She decided to interpret it differently. Now that demands a lot of intelligence, I think. You can hear, almost you can't even hear it, because the fact was so evident that she was innocent. The fact that she was on death row, it was a complete nightmare. And then you hear that someone says you should think of it differently. We don't even know what they mean. But she somehow came to this conclusion herself. She was incredible. I can't get over her because that demands so much, and I would call that intelligence. Because in other words, what she must have realized is that what goes on in her mind was the main source of her happiness and suffering. And she knew that by changing her mind, she could learn to become she could learn not to go crazy. Do you understand me, people? You can't wish for a better example. But most people, I think, are not capable. It's too intense. Most people literally go mad. I remember reading at the same time, this one guy on death row, same situation, completely innocent. And this is really common, he lost his mind. He would rave and scream all day as long as he had a voice. I did not rape and kill that woman. I did not rape and kill that. In other words, the despair, the rage, the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, all those words, And I think if you said to him, well, you know what, sweetheart, I've got a friend called Sunny who's in the same situation and she's learned to change her mind, he wouldn't be able to hear you. You can't even hear it. When you're so full of despair and rage, it seems like a complete farce to say what Sunny did. You understand my point? Because the intensity of anger is that because it's unjust, then we say it like this. We say, what do you mean stop being angry? I'm allowed to be angry. Because when we hear, oh, you shouldn't be angry, we hear it as punitive and you're naughty and you'll get punished. But all Buddha's saying is, honey, can you look into your own mind and you will see that anger is making you crazy, that anger is causing you such pain. But we don't think the anger causes the pain. We think the event causes the pain. You see my point? So this is not easy. This is not easy, And people who are, let's say, politically active, who are very angry as well as being politically active is fantastic, but also very angry. You suggest that you don't have to be angry to be a political activist, then that's not possible. Because we assume, of course you must be angry. Look at what's happening. But this is the point that really demands a lot of looking at. That when we have to know what anger means. Everyone's got their own interpretation, perhaps. But this is the Buddhist point, as we were saying this morning. The neurotic states of mind have this extra component. They might be dealing with some facts. Like, for example, so use attachment as an example. Attachment sees the chocolate cake. You see the chocolate cake on the plate. And if there's strong attachment in the mind, which is this strong craving, this strong emotional hunger, then the attachment is exaggerating the deliciousness of the cake, believes the cake, when I get it, will definitely cause me to be happy. And so you can't see any other way of seeing it. You don't even realize you're making up a story about it. That's how strongly our emotions are. So when you're angry with somebody who harms you, what do you mean I'm angry? We assume that that anger is the fact, but one is stubbing the toe. Pain is in the toe. Anger is separate. Anger is on top. And this is the point about attachment and aversion and all the other neuroses. They're the voices of ego. They're the voices of a victim. They're the voices of this kind of kind of, I only deserve happiness. I do not deserve suffering. There's a very powerful energy of I in it, and it's hard to see it. So Sunny has to have had a personality that wasn't very ego-based to be able to do what she did. And I know the woman. I met her after she came out of prison. She was 80 something. She was in a wheelchair. She had a lot of pain. She taught yoga, and she was this little happy old lady. I know many people who've been in prison, and you can feel the baggage from years of trauma and undealt with. But Sunny had none of that, because she dealt with it. Do you understand what I'm saying? She had no leftover trauma because she had dealt with all her suffering. And when she talked about her experiences, it was just it was just like a faint memory of it because she dealt with it. And that's so unusual. Do you see what I'm saying? I just find her the most powerful example because she wasn't religious. She wasn't doing it because she should. She discovered on her own in this cell from her own mind that her anger, her fears, her despair, her rage, they were destroying her. Many people say this. I'm blown out because I've got an angry nature. I've had to really work on it all these years, you know. They would say, oh, I realize there's no benefit in being angry. I mean, that's mind-boggling, actually. They realize it. I mean, that's so stunning that a person just comes to that conclusion themselves, you know. Oh, it's stupid being angry. It doesn't help, they say. And that's exactly the point. But we can't see it. If we have a tendency to be angry, we just can't see it. It's so fascinating, really, isn't it? And the thing is, you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's why I always mention Martin Luther King. He said, the way he put it was, it's good to be angry, meaning it's good to find fault. There is injustice, there is racism, there is suffering. Fact. There is a pain in the toe. Fact. There is a war. Fact. But then you say, what can I do to help? Or if yourself, what can I do to change it? What can I do to fix it? What can I do? So she couldn't get out of prison. I could leave Gabriel, creepy old husband, remember, who beat me up. I could leave him, although we don't think so. And this is one of the big sufferings in our world, I think, locked in our relationships, people in partnerships. It's like, I think it's some number like the UN, the United Nations, something or other. It's always said that about 40% of all women who get murdered on the planet are murdered by the bloke in the same bed. Now, this is not sexism. I'm not discussing men or women here. This shows the intensity of our sufferings, that you're locked in a relationship with another person, then you start this negative thing, and then you get angry and you're attached, and you get angry and you hurt him, he hurts you, and no one's keeping you in prison. There's no lock on the door. But it doesn't occur to us that we can leave. We're like kind of magnetized to each other. It's so extraordinary, which shows the power of our anger and attachment, you know. And this is normal daily life, even just in your job. You know, there I go to Gabriel, he's my friend. I'd complain about my boss. Oh, I hate this boss. He's so mean. He's ugly. He's this, he's that. And it might be true. He might be mean and ugly. And Gabriel says, well, you know, Robina, you could leave the job. Have you thought of that? And I'd say, what do you mean leave? Why should I leave? He's the one who should change. And you don't even occur to you that you could have the power to change your job. But you sit there with the resentment and the bitterness and the anger, complaining every day, and you're stuck. You don't realize you can make a choice. So then he would say, once I say, no, I can't change my job. Well, that's interesting, Robina. How about changing your mind? How about looking at the job and seeing if there's another way you can see it, to see there's some advantage to it and you make the most of it? No, what do you mean? I'm not going to change. No, why should I? I'm not wrong. He should change. So we are paralyzed in our lives. We can neither change the situation nor our own mind. So we all go mad. That's how we live our lives, because we're so entrenched in attachment, anger, resentment, anxiety, low self-esteem, depression, and really believe it's set in stone. Really believe that, and this is why someone asked yesterday in a teaching about attachment to our suffering. And we are attached to it. Like we're grasped onto it like a vampire, you know. Don't think we can change, don't want to change, and then keep complaining. I'm not being mean about us, but we all understand this, you know. So it takes tremendous mental effort. She said I mean, this woman is so amazing to me. She was in her cell 23 hours a day for years on end. Husband dead, executed. Accused of murder. And you're the worst. If you're on death row, you're the worst on the planet because you kill policemen, right? You're like the most evil person there is. Children gone, family gone, not on her own, can you imagine? And she found these inner resources, you know. She said she'd give herself permission for 5 minutes to be raging angry, and then she would stop and go back to her in her own plan that she had devised for herself to change her mind. I mean, I just can't get over her. She's so astonishing, you know. Do you understand me, people?
Yeah.
So to be able to see it as an interpretation, anger is an interpretation of that pain in the toe. Anger is an interpretation. We've got to understand it this way. It is this and it is that. And this is our trouble. Depending on our habits and our personality, we have this interpretation of something, divine chocolate cake. We don't think it's an interpretation. What we think we're doing when we say, wow, 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 that divine chocolate cake, and I must have it, we think the chocolate cake that we see on that plate, divine, delicious, vibrating deliciousness, is the cake on the plate. It's not. That's the Buddha's point. It's coming from your own perception. You know. There is a cake on the plate, but not vibrating deliciousness. That's the fantasy we add to it. You know. But we think it's in the cake, like as if deliciousness, as if you put a spoonful of deliciousness into the cake along with the flour, you know. Or ugliness is in Gabriel, who cheated on me, as if ugliness is coursing in his veins along with his blood. That's how we think, you know. And then I'm allowed to be angry. We say it like that. I'm allowed to be angry. So this is the thing when we look at it and see this in our own mind. They are the voices of a victim. I'm not being mean because the world is a suffering place. When we can see that we can find a way to see things in a different way. And the point about this is not religious, it's scientific fact. And who is the beneficiary? You. That's the point. But it takes a lot to see this. Even people like someone I know, I'm thinking of somebody I know at the moment who's really kind, really compassionate, really generous, helps poor people, helps sick people, demonstrates here, demonstrates there, always supporting people, always liking, always helping, a very intelligent person, but gets angry easily. But you say that anger, she's absolutely denies that anger hurts her. No, she said, it's wrong. So it's hard to see it because we're so full of righteousness, you know, we're so righteous. Because sometimes with this type of anger we have, it's always like we're so innocent, we're so perfect. How dare you? All these people out there doing these things. Or some people spend out days constantly commenting on the politicians and always finding fault, always criticizing so righteously, as if somehow, and everybody on the street and on the road, like drivers, this particular person hates aggressive drivers, even takes their number plate. You understand? And wants to put them in, dob them in, you know. And it would never admit its anger, though. Doesn't call it. Do you understand? Because it's hard to see this in our own mind. So-called transforming a problem, meaning learning to see it a different way, it's difficult. You've got to have a very wise mind, know yourself very well, and it's an intelligence. That's all. It's really intelligence. Sunny must have had this incredible intelligence. You know, you never think she was intelligent. She was like some kind of scientific intelligent, emotionally intelligent. You know, and humble. And I mean, the confidence to do that for years on her own, you know. And the interesting point is that guy who went crazy, he couldn't lift a finger to help himself. He was out of his brain. But Sunny never stopped working on her freedom, and she finally got her freedom, you know, because she kept her sanity. So ordinary life, this is what it means. And then you are the beneficiary. No matter what happens in the world, if you do this every day, dealing with the dramas, the small things. Don't wait to be, cheated on you by your husband. Little baby things, stubbing your toe, getting the coffee to be wrong. You've got to catch your mind and just see it differently. That's okay. I can handle cold coffee. You know, right there, you change your mind. Right there, you stop, you solve the problem. It's no longer a problem. Fact. It's fact. That's what transforming problems means. And we're the beneficiary. It's a practical psychological solution, but it really demands intelligence. It really does. You can hear it, you know. And it's difficult. I mean, my nature is to be angry. My nature is, and you can see a good side to that, which means you get things done, you know. That's wrong. How can I fix it, you know? But something like for myself, for example, I have ringing in the ears. Not that severe, I'm sure. I don't know. I hear some people have terrible suffering with it. And that's definitely something I can't change. So I really realized I don't have a choice, you know. I remember going to this audiologist and she had all these questions. And one of the questions was, does it make you feel kind of overwhelmed and imprisoned sometimes? Well, it did. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and all I could hear, do you understand me, is the noise in my ears. And I'd panic and have to wake up and turn the light on and distract myself, you know. So I realized I had to do something about it. I had no choice. So I started trying. I did two things. The first one was try not to pay attention to it. And that's very hard because you really notice it. It looms large, you know. And I tried not to pay attention to it. I practiced not paying attention to it. And then the second thing was I tried also to welcome, when I did notice it, not to be afraid of it, because anger, aversion is really rooted in fear. You don't want it to be there. So you say, this should not be there, and you wish it would go away, isn't it? That's anger, isn't it? It's very fearful. So I decided I would welcome it, not be afraid of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I tried. And before I realized, I'd forgotten I had ringing in my ears. I'm really serious. I was so shocked. So sometimes now I'm noticing it now because I'm talking about it. And then especially at nighttime when you're all quiet and you're trying to go to sleep. So I'd panic a bit and think, oh my God, I'm going to keep focusing on it. And then I'd forget. I mean, so it's good to be distracted. I forgot. Do you understand me? Or I'd hear it. And I'd suddenly go, have I got ringing in my ears? I can't tell. I couldn't tell whether it was a normal sound or my ears. It was so peculiar. But it's no longer a problem for me. I'm just trying to tell you I had a success, that's all. Do you understand me? That's when you do hear people like the ones who say, I realize anger is no good. I mean, I'm blown out by those people because, you know, anger for me is natural. They just don't have much anger. And you can see people who don't have much anger are much more happy. Now, this is another point, though. Just because you don't shout doesn't mean you don't have anger. Don't fool yourself. You understand what I'm saying? People who don't have much volatile anger expressing it, if they do have a lot of aversion in their mind, theirs turns into depression. Can you hear that? Because depression, okay, if you think about just the mechanical, almost like the technicality of how attachment and aversion work day by day, second by second. Attachment is this motor in us, driving us, always wanting only the nice things, always wanting the nice sound and the nice smell and the nice taste and the nice event and the nice news. It's like hungrily only wanting nice things. And of course, the moment it doesn't get it, that is the moment of aversion. Now, if you've got a quiet personality, not a volatile one who shouts and yells, you've still got aversion, but it doesn't become expressed, but you don't deal with it, so it goes inside and you build it up. And that's why one day you can't get out of bed. Do you understand my point? Because everything builds up. If you keep having anger, it builds up. If you keep having aversion, it goes internally and it builds until eventually you're inert, you know, deeply depressed. So every moment counts, you know. So learning to deal with these moments in daily life, that's really where we have to start, you know. Don't wait for the big dramas to happen. Are we communicating? This is the most practical skill, I tell you. Not religious, it's practical, and we can begin to see it can work, and we are the beneficiary. It's not moralistic, it's for our own benefit. Now, of course, if we look at the way the teachings are presented in the Mahayana path and the Bodhisattva teachings, it's not presented like that. It's presented really, and this is much harder to hear, it's presented for the Bodhisattvas who have this huge compassion and huge wish to become a Buddha as quickly as possible to benefit suffering sentient beings. That's what's driving them. And so they are happy when an obstacle comes, like a person's mean to them, because that's the opportunity to welcome it, which is putting an atomic bomb under your attachment and your aversion, which then makes it easy for you to keep getting more compassionate. So for them, it's a tool to become more compassionate. Do you understand me? That's really much more powerful. But even just for our own sake, thinking the way I was saying it before, it's so practical. But you've got to be conscious, though. You've got to be conscious all the time. Because we don't pay attention to small events. We just say, oh, annoyed, frustrated, irritated, upset. We don't think it's even important. But these are the moments we should be dealing with. We have to pay attention more. We've got to pay attention at another level, moment by moment, catching our mind. Not waiting for the dramatic experiences to happen. Are we communicating, people? Any questions? Any questions on the screen here? No, okay.
There's one in the chat.
Oh, is it good? Tell me.
You see it
No,
in the chat?
I haven't looked in the chat. No, you read it out. For all of our sake, read it.
It's from Shuyang,
What does she say?
and she says, I see a lot of attachments of my children to sweets, TV, etc.
Yeah.
I know working on these attachments is ultimately an individual journey.
But what's the last little bit? What you say?
He says, I know working on these attachments is ultimately an individual journey, but should I do something about it?
I understand, for other people,
Right.
to help the kids.
Right.
Yeah, but this is where I think being a parent or a teacher, a parent especially, is tremendously hard, I can't imagine being a parent. But the crucial point is, and I don't think we realize this, if you say, how can I help my kids give up attachment to sugar? Let's say, how do you work with it? Well, then, it's like saying, if you say, how can I help my kids learn music? How can I help my children learn music? It's obvious the answer is, I've got to first learn music myself. It's obvious, isn't it? But as parents, we don't think that. So let's say you have an angry child. How can I help my child who's angry? Well, the answer is work on your own anger first. But we never think that's the answer, because we don't realize that our own anger is factoring into the drama. And that's the biggest problem, I think, as parents. So if you've got a lot of attachment in the way that parents typically have, especially mums, of the anxiety of protecting the children and worrying that they're doing this and picking them up when they fall down and kind of like over exaggeratedly taking care of them, which is attachment, then you can't see you've got attachment. You just think you're being a normal mother. Or if you've got strong attachment for food or video games or whatever, then you don't know how to help your child. How can you? So you've got the answer, first of all, Shu Young, is we've got to work on our own mind. I can't stress that enough, That's a surprise to us. But it's obvious, you must. Because if so then the more you understand your own attachment, how it causes you suffering, then you can see your children's minds well, because you see your own, your children's mind. So you'll be able to see what their particular attachments are. And so one child is not too bad with food, but the other one is obsessed with food. So you'd know how to work with them. You'd know how you'd make sure the food that they're attached to wouldn't be visible. It's not kind to a 5-year-old child to give them a sweet and then say, please control your mind. Don't be so mean, just don't give it to them, or give them one at a time. Like, I remember these one set of parents I went to visit. I mean, our family was chaotic. There were 7 children. Like, I can't imagine my mother handled anything, all just berserk. But I remember going to one family where there was one child and they're very kind of quiet people. And when the child wanted a sweet, Daddy had to reach up to the top of the closet and hand down one sweet. When in our family, you got a packet of Smarties and whoever was quick enough got the lot, Do you understand? There was no you didn't help the children. So you've got to be intelligent, because the first level of practice is keep away from the object. It's kind of obvious, And that means when it's sweets and things. That's why now these days with social media, I mean, in Australia, I think there's a law been passed where it's now like driving cars under age 16. Now you can't have social media under age 16. Okay, of course, all the kids are going to be skillful. They all say it. But at least you've got a law, something that'll help hold it a little bit, you know. So you've got to be intelligent. And that's why recently, there's a case recently, isn't there, of Facebook got sued for millions of dollars for causing mental distress to a child by all their algorithms and how they manipulate it all to make the child have more attachment. And that is definitely would be true. And that's exactly the point. You've got to try and seduce people more to buy your damn things. So it's being skillful in not demanding the child work on their mind. That's too much effort. But control the external environment so it doesn't trigger their problems. That is wisdom. And I think we don't even have that wisdom for ourselves as adults. We don't appreciate it. So if you have that kind of wisdom, that kind of intelligence, you help yourself and then you can help your children. Of course, it's not easy with all the pressure at school when everybody has an iPhone now and everybody has this and that. It's very hard, you know. But also it depends on the child's personality. Not every child is overwhelmed by all the pressure. You know, not everyone. You've got to know your child's mind. Do you understand? Shu Young, I hope that's helpful. But it means you've got to know their mind. And you cannot know your child's mind if you don't know your own mind. Because if you've got full of neuroses and full of attachment and anger, you're seeing your child through the lenses of your own dramas, and you're not seeing your child properly. So you need wisdom, and that means from working on your own mind. So important, you know. What else is there? Any other questions? Yes, go.
There's this idea of householder, somebody who's,
Yes, a mummy or a daddy, that's right. Yes,
yes, we're all householders in a way.
yes.
How do we kind of like go beyond that to become more Buddha-like?
Well, I mean, it's just, that's why, okay, you know, that's why understanding the power of attachment and aversion, these two in particular, attachment even, understanding attachment, the power of attachment to external objects. So the classic one of giving up the householder's life and becoming a monk, the most obvious result of that is you keep away. It's like alcoholics walking away from alcohol. It's very sensible to do that. So you've got to know your own mind. You've got to know your own mind, you know. You've got to know what you need for yourself to help you develop yourself. So you have a householder's life. Is that what you want? Or you want to escape it?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. I knew I never wanted it. That's a fact. Can you imagine being married to me? Oh my God. I mean, my kind of mind was as soon as it was I mean, it's like I'm so intense. I tried to get happy. I tried to have boyfriends and then girlfriends when it didn't work, the boyfriends. I tried. I did my best to get happy. But what I noticed, I mean, I don't know if is that I couldn't stand what came along with it. The attachment and the worries and the panic and the anxiety. Does he love me? Does he not love me? And then the anger and then the jealousy. I thought, how could anyone live with that? So I knew it was not my style. I mean, the thought of living in a house with one person in the same bed. Oh my God, I'm sorry. And I thought sex was very nice. But to live in a house with a person in the same bed, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I'd rather not. So my feeling is at least have your separate bedrooms. That I remember the New York Times, they had a whole section or interviews with different people who decided they would have their own rooms. So initially one of the other halves would panic, you don't love me anymore. But the freedom that came from it, because you could express your own way you design the room. You could, in other words, you can fart and pick your nose in peace. That's what I'm saying. You can be more yourself and relax. And then when you come together, you can have nice, friendly sex and go back to your own room again. I think that's very intelligent, quite frankly. And less dramas. I mean, because I'm being very blunt here, but we're all human beings, and we need. I mean, as soon as you get to live with a person, and then you think, oh, they love me no matter what I do. So you walk around farting and wearing ugly old dirty clothes and snoring at night. I mean, that's a big test for human beings. I'm very sorry. I know you know what I mean. So have your own room and then come together and have a date. You know, I think that's more intelligent, quite frankly. Maybe even better to have your own apartment. But who's got that level of money? We don't have. You understand? In other words, you don't have to create so many problems for yourself. That's the thing. It's practical. But that demands a lot of wisdom. The people who are running around in their relationships killing each other because there's no sense of, I think when you've got a massive attachment, there's no sense of self-respect because you're so hungry for that person to see them, hear them, touch them, have them there. It's like a nightmare, you know. That can't be healthy. That's not love. That's neurotic, you know. So understanding again, so here, really distinguishing between attachment and love, that is a minefield. Oh my God, very hard. So when you realize in this Buddhist analysis that all the neuroses are really painful and they are distorted and they're very I-based. And then the virtuous states of mind are more spacious and valid and reasonable, and they incorporate others. So love and kindness and patience have a more space in them. You know, I'm trying to be quite literal. So when we in our world, we really truly believe that love is attachment. We don't even make a distinction. And then, you know, it's like somebody I know after 60 years of marriage, you know, 50 years, 55 years, lots of children, grandchildren, close relationship, you know, and then he died. And she said it was still 3 years later, the greatest pain I have ever known. Now, and then she said, that's what you get for loving somebody. No, that's what you get for attachment. But in our culture, we don't distinguish them. We assume they're the same state of mind. So that's a difficult one. To begin to see the difference is so tremendous, you know. Because attachment is neurotic and fearful and I-based and needy and possessive and worried and fearful. And love is appropriate and based on the other person, more reasonable. Do you understand? There's such different states of mind. But our trouble is we're only ever attached to those we love. And love, what is love? Love is the delight in someone else being happy. Love is may you be happy. Love is wishing to another person be happy and trying to get them to be happy. That's really powerful. But at the moment, we only have that for people we're attached to, our partners and our children and our pets. And then the only people we are attached to are those we love. So we assume they go together. And so when the attachment stops, this is the point. When the attachment stops, the love stops. So it really shows our love is not very noble. Do you understand me? It's easy to want someone to be happy if it's your precious child, you know, or your beloved partner, because ego's got a vested interest. And that's why I can imagine, you know, you hear about mothers who don't have much attachment to their babies. They're the ones who might kill their babies, and you think they're all monsters. But you think if you didn't see attachment for a mother, attachment for her child makes the child look totally divine. I mean, there must be mothers here, right? Mothers, fathers, yeah. Is there only one mother here? The only person who's had children is Jody, is it? Who's had children? You're a mother or you're a father, same. So yeah, so you think your children are divine, right? Don't you? You don't think they're so beautiful? You didn't.
Not no more.
Oh. No, I'm sure when they were little wee things. I mean, in a way, you need that. I mean, my mother, if she wasn't attached to me, I mean, she would have killed me, you know. So this is well, she was attached to me. You understand? Because mother, I mean, you show a photo of 1,000 babies to a mother, her child will be shining like a little halo around it immediately. Not going to get it confused. You don't bring home the wrong baby, you know. So because that's attachment, and we call that bonding, all that stuff in the West, but it's simply called attachment, a strong karmic connection from the past. You know, this little person comes out, and you just can't believe this little treasure, you know. So of course it's easy to want that little treasure to be happy. Of course it is. It's easy to. So don't think you're so good because you have such love. But some mothers look at this baby, think, "Who the hell is this thing in my life?" They have a panic attack. They're not attached to it, and they think they're abnormal. So it's very hard when the little ugly little baby starts crying and shitting in its diapers. Of course, you're going to get upset and get angry and not love it. So love is, you know, don't think it's so good to love somebody when you've got attachment for them. Now, loving people they're not attached to, that's the proof, you know. Wow, it must be very hard. It's amazingly hard. You think about it. So the key thing all the time I'm saying here is this very distinct approach in the Buddhist psychological model. the distinction between the neurotic states of mind and the virtuous ones. And it's not just vague, it's really huge. And once we start seeing in our own mind and beginning to understand the ones that causes pain, like Sunny, and knowing how to change, that's incredible for your benefit, for your own sanity, you know. So then when really bad things happen, you're equipped to deal with them. That's the point. So Sunny had to wait. She was put on death row before she started, and she still managed, you know. So when we understand also that, again, anger and attachment, for example, they're so linked to the sense of an I, this feeling of righteousness and, you know, like I said, what do you mean I shouldn't be angry? I'm allowed to be angry. And we hold on to it so powerfully. That's why it's so hard to give it up, you know. Like we're outraged at the thought of it. But again, not to make the mistake of when you try to give up the anger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. No. Sunny continued to work on her freedom because it was unjust. She didn't just go, oh well, I'm in prison, it doesn't matter. No. So it's very wise. It's very powerful. That's where you can learn then to be, you know, a political activist, but not out of anger, out of a sincere wish to make things better. That's compassion. That's marvelous. That's wonderful. That's amazing. What else, people? Questions?
It's
Nothing?
not really a question.
Go, no, go, Jan.
I just wanted to, when you were talking about anger
Mm-hmm.
and Sunny as well. I just, what arose in my mind was that incident with, Will Smith and,
The what, darling?
at the Academy Awards several years ago.
Yes.
When Will Smith,
I'll punch, what's his name in the nose?
I can't remember.
Chris Rock.
Yeah, Chris Rock. And
That's
that
right.
I mean,
So what's the point?
breathtakingly out of control was the point. I mean, he just, boom, in the middle of,
So then,
well,
just remembered it.
well, I wonder what the consequences are.
Oh, I don't know. The feeling, no, but my point, okay, my feeling about that one,
Yeah,
my own interpretation of that was that he became very convinced. He suddenly sort of got the sense of he's going to be noble and defend his wife.
right.
That's where it's coming from, I think,
Right.
which actually is incredibly patronizing.
Mhm.
This is what men do to their girlfriends. They have to protect them, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, can you imagine a wife standing up and walking up to Chris Rock and punching him in the nose because he insulted her husband? I don't think so. So my feeling is that was a bit mixed with pride and kind of,
Okay.
and sort of like, you know, defending, seeing as a noble man defending his wife.
Right.
Do you understand? I thought it was
Yeah.
rather, from that perspective, it was rather ridiculous, I thought. A silly man, you know, showing him, I mean, he really exposed himself as being ridiculous, didn't he? It was a very dumb thing to,
But he destroyed
what?
his own.
I know, but he's back again. People like him. It's all right. It's lucky. It was just fortunate because they're not painting him with the one brush
Right.
like they are now with all the men who have been discovered to do naughty things to women. There's no men. I think you can't find a man who hasn't done something naughty to women over the centuries. That means you're going to cancel every artist, every musician, every film, every politician. Like even now, what's his name? Cesar Chavez. You know, they discovered he was a bit heavy on the women. Nothing surprising. I don't know why we're surprised. It doesn't matter. It's just the way things are. Now things are changing. It's okay. Don't worry too much about it.
Well,
Ridiculous.
we seem to be self-righteously taken aback.
What?
We seem to be self-righteously taken aback by, you know, after exaggerating someone's importance, even though, you know, they contributed in a very positive way, then they disappoint us. We're
That's right.
talking about a public figure.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
So,
It shows
you know,
our own
yeah.
nonsense. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. What else, people? Any questions? I think I mean, it's only 3 o'clock. We run out of what to say. So I speak so fast and so quick. There's nothing left. Yes, Jody. Hang on. Go, Jody.
So you mentioned that you can't just tell people that it's their mind and they need to change it. They can't hear you.
Oh, I don't. Did I say exactly those words? And you can sometimes, depending on the person. So go on. What's the point?
So if there's someone coming to you with their problems,
Yeah,
and you see how they are causing
themselves the
their
problem.
own-
Yeah.
nothing I've tried works. I mean, I sort of
In giving them
get
advice, you mean?
upset because I say you're the.
Oh, I see.
They
Oh,
want to
okay.
think else,
No, I
but
know. Okay.
This decision and this,
You see, I think
it's the better approach.
I think the problem is you might be right exactly in your assessment of that person. Put it that way. You might be right. But what you're lacking, and what we are lacking, is the wisdom to know where they're at with it and how to help them. And our trouble is, from our own attachment point of view, we get all carried away and we think we're supposed to solve their problem. Attachment wants to make it all nice, and that's the problem. So sometimes the advice would be just to listen. I understand, sweetheart. I understand. I'm sure you'll find the way. Trust your own wisdom, and then that's it. But we feel compelled to make it better, and that's attachment. That's not wisdom. When it's wisdom, you know where the person's at. So one child, you know that they're open and ready to hear a piece of advice quite direct. The other child, you give them a hug. But it's just this attachment we have to solve everybody's problem, and it's so invasive. So we can't stand our poor mums when they're endlessly giving advice, telling do this, do that, do this, and they say, "Oh, it's because I love you." No, it's their attachment wanting to make it nice because it upsets them. That's the problem. So you don't have, and the other one is what just because, and then you feel like you're a failure because you didn't solve the problem. But it's not your job. Your job is to help solve a problem, but you got to use the wisdom to know how. And maybe that is to accept it. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, I might go to Lama Zopa about something. One time he might tell me exactly what to do, or he might say, "You decide." That could be wisdom. You got to know and not be coming from attachment to make it nice. And we never see that part of ourselves. We just think we're being so noble. Do you understand me? You've got to know where the person's at. That's what wisdom is. And that's our problem. Like let's say you discover nutrition, or you've just become a vegan. You run around bashing everybody else on the head with your bloody veganism or your bloody nutrition because we found the truth. And you might be right. But we go like bulls in there and make everyone act the same. We try to convert everybody, It's horrible. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why. And the fact that even, this is where, again, this attachment for everything to be nice. Like, say you got your neurotic mother and you always visit her and you're worried about you're guilty because she's always miserable and never thinks you love her enough and you never come and visit me enough. You never phone me enough. Some people are like that, right? And then we, of course, take it totally personally. And then we keep being convinced if I do this and if I do that, then she'll get better. But she never gets better. So therefore you think you're a failure. You are not a failure. Our job is to want to make people happy. That's love. But it doesn't mean you'll make them happy. They've got to come to the party. They've got to do their part of it. And if your mother's becomes the same, goodbye, mummy, see you next week, darling, and leave it alone. In other words, we've got to learn to live with the discomfort of her still being miserable, which means giving up attachment for her to stop being miserable. We don't realize our attachment to make everything lovely is the big problem. We can't even notice it. We would never even think it comes from attachment. We think it's kindness. Do you understand what I'm saying? This, I think, is massive. I mean, with children, I don't know, how old are your kids? You got kids, right?
Yeah, they're in their 20s.
Oh, 20, so they're beyond you now. I can't. When they were little, though. I mean, were they hard to bring up, or they were nice kids?
They were nice.
Behaved well.
Yep.
Didn't cause you too many problems.
All girls.
All girls. So they didn't jump into. So they now all behave nicely and probably got boyfriends and babies and things themselves now
Mhm.
with their own problems.
Yep.
Well done. Who else has got babies here? Nobody. Oh,
I have a 2 years old and an 8 year old.
oh my God, whose eye? Which eye is this? Shuyang.
Yes.
So this one of your attachment, did you hear the answer I said before about your question?
Yes.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it's just it's something that won't be solved quickly and
No,
easily.
exactly. But the key to it, Shuyang, is your success in your practice. I promise you, the key to success is your practice, your success in your practice. Because you see them through the lenses of your own virtues and your own neuroses. So if you don't work on your own stuff, you can't handle theirs. How can you? So the more you work on yours, even if they turn out to be neurotic kids, it that determines your ability to handle it, you know.
Mhm.
It's a huge one, a really huge one. And I think also when you have the feeling, I mean, if you have the Buddhist view that you didn't create these children, which is so rude and aggressive and arrogant that I made this baby, you know. So when the baby turns out bad, you turn it against yourself, you know. Whereas if you have the view of karma, they made themselves and came along to you to test you. You understand? It's a very different view.
Right.
I mean, I hear it from mothers who really believe they made their children, and the kid turns out to be some wacko. They take it personally, like they did a bad job, you know. Or when they turn out good, they think they made the nice person. It's so rude, acting like a creator.
It's helpful when you have more than one and they're very different. Like, oh, okay, this just on your own. It's
Oh,
not
that's
me.
interesting. Now that would be interesting. Yeah, exactly. Well done, Shiyang. I can't imagine being a parent. Well done.
Thanks.
Is Julondra has got you got your light on or your hand off.
Oh,
Want
yes,
to say something? Say something, darling.
yes. I was trying to sort that out.
Go
So
on.
in terms of the process, right, a method, I guess, for purifying previous seeds of
Yeah,
suffering,
yes, that's right.
does it does it amount to sort of an acceptance of what we can't have? Is that is that the thrust of it?
Say a bit more.
Like, I guess I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the process, and I'm thinking about like not cake, right? Like not, money, but like my I think I may have an attachment problem to sort of to learning or like wanting to advance in knowledge and understanding, right? Like is there a spiritual danger, I guess, in sort of
Mm.
one being attached to that and trying to work on that attachment and work on
Okay. Okay, first of all, wanting something is not the same as attachment.
uh-huh.
Because if you think it is, you throw the baby out with the bathwater, end up with like nihilistic. So, okay, it depends on what you want. So if I want to murder I want to murder my girlfriend, that's want. And that is clearly driven by anger. You can't have that thought without anger. So I want to eat 7 chocolate cakes is clearly driven by attachment. But if you have this wish, this aspiration, I want to become a better human being, I want to understand my mind, that already in its nature is something virtuous. That wish is already a virtuous thought. Now, if you become attached to it, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you become attached to it, you become neurotic and obsessive and become very self-centered, and it won't last. But if it's something like that, and it's not attachment to it, want it as much as you can. And what that means is you're going to practice virtue and give up attachment. How marvelous! So don't be afraid of it. Go for it. But if you just treat it as an intellectual thing and then define yourself in terms of it and get all arrogant, that's the problem. So really want to become a better human being and really want to be a benefit to others, that is in itself amazing. It's got to come from a virtuous place. So don't be afraid of it.
Mm,
Wonderful. Go for it. Go for it. 100%. Do you understand?
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Good. Yes. Go,
Venerable,
Gabriel.
you talked about how we transform problems using the three poisons. And you talked about anger, attachment,
Yeah.
but how do you do it with
I understand.
ignorance?
I understand. Yeah. Okay. So they're all very linked, of course, but let's look at the more subtle one, the root problem. The root problem. That really is just an extra level of practice of what we're already saying. So in other words, if you're really trying to just give up, if you're trying to transform the problem, okay. The real the no, the real thing we've been doing is looking at how you see a problem differently, which implies working with anger. And then how we've been talking about attachment is so in order to inform our understanding of aversion, because aversion or anger are the responses to when attachment doesn't get what it wants. So our talk of attachment is just adding a deeper taste to what anger really is and why it comes. So the real one of problems is when it's anger. So the extra component of emptiness is one they put there. So already realizing you can change the way you're labeling the problem. So using the ringing in my ears as my own example. So first of all, there's attachment attachment just wants everything nice. That's the underpinning thing. Always just wanting everything nice. And it's an anxiety, always wanting everything nice. And so the moment something comes, like disturbs that peace, the noise in my ears. Simple example. Then aversion arises, and it's very linked to fear, like because you realize you can't change it, and it's like overwhelming. So that's fear and anger and aversion. And not to be critical about it. Don't have to be guilty about it. It's just how it is. It mightn't be like anger that wants to kill you, but it's kind of wish it wasn't there and wish it would go away. And then it turns into self-pity. So then you can see how by change. So what we're doing is when it comes to anger, the moment anger arises, the attachment is there and it's all delicious and everything's lovely and you're going towards it. And then suddenly a mean thing comes and it gives you a shock and it makes you go back. And then you want to think that I don't want this should go away. I can't handle it. So that's why the anger, and then that's we can see with fear. Now the ignorance one is even more deep when you call it good. And already that is implying emptiness, that it doesn't have an inherent nature as bad. Straight away, you are already using emptiness there, the root delusion of ignorance. It doesn't have an inherent nature as being bad. And that's why when we think we can't change it, it's because we have strong, concrete view that it is set in stone, that it is inherent. So as soon as you start working with the anger and change the name, that's already practicing emptiness, which is attacking the root delusion. You see what I'm saying? Because as soon as you look into the problem, as soon as you don't resist the problem, you look it in the eye, you welcome it. Already it dissipates. Already it's dissipating, and that shows it has no inherent nature. Do you understand? That's the real one. Does it make sense? Because ignorance is the root delusion that believes in inherent me, inherent you, inherent bad, inherent good, set in stone, stuck. So when the person's mind is very ignorant, there's no space to ever see it differently. So you could say from this that Sunny must have had a very wise mind from some karma from the past, because she certainly didn't learn it in this life. That's emptiness. That's the ignorance one. That's attacking ignorance. Do you understand? And the cake one, see, all the delusions exaggerate, each in their own specific way. So attachment specifically exaggerates the deliciousness of the cake. So then underpinning the attachment, because it's the root delusion, is that delicious. So attachment exaggerates deliciousness, but ignorance, the root delusion underpinning attachment, is exaggerating the very actual status itself, in and of itself, of the delicious cake, that it exists there, separate from my mind. That's the function of the ignorance underneath the attachment. They kind of all work together. You've got to identify the component of the action of each one, So the same with the attachment to the cake is harder in a way because you look at it, if you look at it in the eye and you do the analysis of cake, then it dissipates. The deliciousness is not so strong. The deliciousness, you can't find it, and that's the emptiness. So you're seeing it already as having no inherent nature, which is hard. Does it make sense, Gabriel?
Yes.
I mean, really, the more we look at this seemingly simple model of the mind, it's actually very profound, and that we can only bring it to the levels we know it. I remember Lama Yeshe would say, I can tell you about attachment for 1 whole year. We'll never begin to understand it until we start going deeply inside. In other words, you can learn the theories till the cows come home. Nothing will change until you apply it inside, see it and taste it, and practice changing it. But all the delusions exaggerate. And really, there's so many, but the half a dozen that are running in our lives are the main cause of why we suffer. Each of us slightly differently. We're all sort of different recipes, So we've all got ego grasping. We've all got attachment. We all have aversion, all a question of how strong. And it's a question of the object that we're attached to. And then you got the other ones, So you got arrogance or pride. Now I think it's rare in our world that we would ever confess to pride. We wouldn't even recognize it, but we all confess to low self-esteem, don't we? Everybody has the suffering of thinking we're not enough, of disliking ourselves, of thinking we're low, But I think the point is that's because we have pride. So pride is this, it exaggerates. It's this, they're all unhappy. They're always unhappy feelings. It exaggerates my importance. We would never think we do that. But as soon as we meet as soon as someone doesn't see us properly, doesn't treat us properly, we are so offended. That's the suffering of pride. And then it manifests as low self-esteem. I'm nothing, I'm nobody. Because or you meet someone who's better than you. A person who's like very good at something, and they meet a person who's better than them. It's like painful for them, That's because of pride. If we didn't have an inflated sense, in other words, when we see ourselves as low, we are resentful of people who are better than us. How dare they be better than us? We'd rather be better. In a sense, we don't think of it that way. So if we don't have much pride, we wouldn't have much low self-esteem. We'd be more humble and therefore more self-respectful. This is very surprising to us. A humble person is content with themselves, but we think humble is low self-esteem. Not true at all. All the virtues have a very sweet taste. They're not unhappy. They're not unhappy at all. They're very comfortable. The delusions are painful. That's a distinction that we have to really taste, If you have delight in someone's happiness, that's a very open, happy feeling. If you have compassion for others, that's very open, very spacious. Kindness, forgiveness, generosity, patience, all the virtues, they're very nice taste because they're more linked to dependent arising. Whereas the delusions are very I-based, fear-based, unhappy, very stressful. It's really important to see that difference. And then, of course, attachment, we can talk about it in so many levels in terms of the object of attachment. The most obvious level they talk about in the middle scope and the Lam Rim is attachment to the objects of the senses. That's the first evident level of control, of discipline, the cakes, the bodies, the money, whatever the objects are. That can be very strong for some people, But then there's a more subtle level of attachment, like I'm saying before, to always wanting everything to be nice. That's like every second. Attachment always only for happy feelings. That's every second. Attachment especially, really the deepest one, since we're born, is constantly attached, yearning for, craving for the approval of others. In other words, why, you think about it, why do we need to be approved of by others? Even why do we need to be liked by others? Think of this. It's very shocking to ask the question. Because we don't think we're enough. That's why. In fact, when we've got this one really strongly, it's as if what I am, what I think, what I feel is nothing unless someone else approves of it. So we're too scared to have opinions. We're too scared to do what we think we should do or want to do. We want to make sure that somebody else is approving of me. This is the worst attachment of all, the most painful. Since we're born. It's the basis of all our romantic relationships. The devastation of someone giving you up isn't because they've stopped wanting to have sex with you. It's because they've stopped approving. They've stopped looking at you with divine eyes. That's why the being seen through the, a person who is attached to you, looking at you like you're an angel. No wonder we're blissed out. We never feel like we're an angel in ourselves. But if a person looks at us, that's the pleasure, I think. That's even more than the sex. I really think that. Because we're so hungry to be approved of, to be validated, to be liked, to be seen as a good person. Because we don't believe it ourselves. This shows how schizophrenic we are, They say the yogis in the mountains who've given up attachment to everything, are still thinking about what the people down in the village are thinking about them. That's a voice that runs in our head all the time. What other people think. We're having conversations with people. We're telling people what we think. We're telling people what we feel. And if we don't have those people in our lives, that's what loneliness is. Because we don't think we're valid on our own. We have to ask the question, what is it about what I think and feel that makes it not enough that I have to have someone else share it with me? We think it's natural. It's attachment. Totally attachment. Because we don't think we're enough. It's quite heavy. So when you are more content in yourself, it doesn't mean you live on your own. You can have 27 friends. You'll be a nicer friend. People will adore you because you're not emotionally hungry for their approval. So I love this phrase, say in our culture, we've got to become our own person. I love that, That's giving up attachment, becoming fulfilled, becoming whole in ourself. Because attachment is a symptom of like a fractured small person. And it's a serious disease. And so can you imagine two people with that level of attachment trying to have a relationship? I'm sorry, no wonder it's a disaster. Because you're never satisfied. You never believe he loves you enough. No matter what he does is never enough. Questioning every second, going completely crazy, jealous, fearful. It's like a nightmare. That's the suffering of attachment. We've all got it. So one step at a time, people. I said I'd go through the 8 verses, but I'm not sure if I should do that. What do you think, people? Enough. Maybe I think we've had enough. Don't you think, Gabriel? It's only 3:15, but I think we've had enough.
More questions.
You want more questions?
I think we still have some questions.
Oh, okay, good. Talk to me. Ask questions. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just going back to anger. So like if a person loses their anger.
Say it again.
If a person loses their anger, do they
You mean
still
gives
have-
it up?
Or yeah, they just are no longer angry.
Okay, right, yeah.
Do they still have the ability to protect themselves, to defend themselves?
So the assumption in that question is that you've got to have anger to protect yourself. The assumption,
like
that's the
it's a
assumption, isn't it?
self-protection mechanism.
Give an example in a relationship, like between two people. Give an example of how that would play out. So are you
Okay,
suggesting?
like soldier,
Oh,
Soldiers need anger.
oh, I see. No, oh, I see what your point. So that's no, see, that's what this is Martin Luther King's point. Yes, find fault. Say there is injustice, there is racism, there is suffering. That's not anger, that's fact. Anger is the panic-stricken response on top of it. So giving up the anger brings you more sanity and more clarity, and you can deal with the problems far better. So if you're, you can be, even as a soldier, I think you can be motivated by compassion to defend. That's not anger, that's the opposite. You hear many people say that. Do you see my point? Anger doesn't mean it means you're stupid and become foolish and weak and passive. You become more intelligent and more clear, and you would actually have compassion. I think so. Does it make sense? Or not?
Like, is there like a different energy that would allow a soldier to fight?
Okay, if you're in the middle of, I think, yeah. So I can't imagine.
I mean, anger's
Okay,
the wrong word,
no, I know.
but
So then I
there's
can't
a
imagine a
strong
person
energy.
in one-on-one fighting in a war, the way they all talk about it, to not have anger. That has to be anger. That's true. So
There's a
then,
strong
but I
energy.
do remember one friend, a man I know in Australia, he's a big guy, very big, very tough, covered in tattoos, looks like a gangster, but he's a policeman. And he's got a very peaceful nature. And his wish is to defend. He's very powerful and very strong, but his wish is to protect people. So if a person has got that much love and compassion, and you can go in with a bayonet into a person's gut, I can't imagine that would be pretty intense. So it seems to me that the people who do talk about being a warrior, that demands a lot of anger, I would say. Yeah, I would suggest. So then if you didn't have that anger, you wouldn't want to be a warrior. You just wouldn't want to do that job. But you could be fierce if you had to defend somebody. You would, yeah. Do you see my point? It wouldn't come from wanting to harm. It would come from wanting to defend. Yeah, that's very different, I think. What else, people? Someone had, yes, sweetheart, yes.
I was wondering, so feelings are, you're the ants and you go towards the sugar, or somebody hits the table and you run away. But I've been trying to work with the neutrality.
Yeah, go.
And is neutrality something good to work with? I mean, I think the way I see it is.
Tell me about it. You mean in kind of like a balanced, neither one or the other?
Yeah, but
go on.
With things, what I picked up this morning with you is it's good to be neutral towards things, but towards people,
yes,
maybe not.
No, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So I think with people, no, that indifference will become, I think, like sort of nihilism, and that's really not the goal at all.
Oh, nihilism.
Yeah, I think so. To objects, yes, maybe just as just a bit of wood, who cares? But I mean, yeah, but I think with people, and often I think the Buddhist approach can be interpreted that way, that you end up, oh, I don't care. Would you like some tea with sugar, Robina? Oh, I don't care. That's indifference, and that's like a nihilism. No, because the opposite, in a sense, to giving up attachment is not don't care, but is love. So if I'm attached to Gabriel, all needy and hungry for his approval, and I'm trying to become more contented myself, I'd naturally end up with more love for Gabriel, not indifference. That would be a problem.
Well, that's a good point about the nihilism.
Yes.
I had not seen that.
No.
I mean, at work, when I see it,
yes,
I listen well to clients.
yes,
It's only the last third of my career that I started realizing I had to listen to the other lawyers.
that's interesting.
Because I thought they just naturally followed me once I found the solution.
I understand. That's interesting.
No other lawyers did. So it was hubris, but I see it, the root of the hubris is nihilism.
No, I think it's true, really.
I'm there as John Wayne at that point, thinking
I
I'm
said.
independent of them, and they're just going to be appendages to me like my horse.
I understand.
And I smoke my Marlboro as I go on.
There you go.
That wasn't real, but it's nihilism.
I think it really is, yeah.
Just the hubris.
I think so. That's interesting. I know.
Slapping myself.
There you go. But I think with people, let's say, let's say you're trying to give up anger towards somebody who's harmed you. I think the indifference would be a good step.
as a first.
You can't
step.
just have compassion immediately, but at least stop the anger and leave it there, quiet. Just let it be. That I think is very necessary, especially when it's to get. And then eventually, with more work internally, you'll even be able to have compassion. You can't go there immediately. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's important, then.
So the feelings are, as you say, like the other mechanics, it's a tool.
That's right. Exactly. No, it's true. It's
But you
true.
have to be very practical, epistemological.
What?
You have to be very practical about it.
No, it really is true. It's quite precise and technical, this explanation, It's very interesting. I know, exactly. And you've got to be very clinical with your own mind. Very clear. So true, isn't it? Okay, good one. What else, people? Yes, darling.
I don't have kids, but I have
What, a bit louder.
I don't have kids, but I have parents.
Yeah, it's in the same boat, isn't it? Go on. That's right.
They're aging, the role kind of
Changes. That's right.
Yeah. So what I want for them nowadays the most is their health, and I kind of want to help them get on the path even if
Really?
I can.
Yes,
And I know there's a mix of love and attachment
of course.
over there. And we just mentioned like we shouldn't be invasive when it comes to
Sure.
helping people.
Yeah.
But I don't know when it's okay to be a little bit invasive.
No, I understand that. No, I do understand your point. It's a really good one. So therefore, I mean, if your mother, let's say she's being neurotic about what she's eating, and she does adore you, you've got to know she adores you, and you've got to know she trusts you. So then you can barge in, oh, come on, mum, eat this food. You're allowed to do that because you know she's open to it. You've got to know where they're at. You've got to know how to play your shots, And that can sound invasive, but it's just plain kindness. But if it's bullying her, because that's heavy duty, because that's what happens if they don't do what we want, then we start bullying them. That's what so commonly happens with our old parents. We treat them very bad, like children who won't do what we want.
Yeah, so that's when I would feel bad afterwards. But in
Absolutely.
that moment, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, don't do this. It's really bad for you. But
Oh, you mean what they're doing?
Yeah.
But are there certain things they do that you think aren't good for them? Like what?
like eating non-healthy food.
Oh, let them eat their non-healthy food. Oh, no, come on. I don't agree with that. Let them smoke. Let them drink their alcohol. Let them have their food. Come on, give it a break. They're old. God, they made it this far. Come on, enjoy their cigarettes. Don't be so moralistic. No, that's really mean. That's mean. Let them eat what they want. Eat their sugar, eat their, smoke their fags. Let them have it. Come on, girl. Get off their backs, please.
So when is it okay for me to say no, like you shouldn't?
Well, you don't say it at all. Mind your own business. They're grown-ups. Let them be. Enjoy. Let them be who they want. That's the trouble, I think, with old people. It's so wicked. Like, you read about this this old 80-year-old lady wants to live in her own house. Excuse me, she's allowed to live in her own house, but the children are all conspiring, all behind her back to get her to take over and be her guardian. And I think that's completely evil. Okay, if she loses her memory and she's mad, fine. But sometimes children can be just as neurotic as parents. Really wicked, in fact. Really bullying and demanding, Be very careful, please. Give them a break. I think, come on. They made it this far. If they're 80 or 90, give them a break, Please. My God. Come on, you people. So I think, yes, hello there, Rami. Talk to me, sweetheart.
So my question is about the line that it seems to exist between accepting problems as the ice cream, let's say, and
Like Mama Zopa says, yeah, learn to like problems like we like ice cream.
and still being alert to the changes in reality. I want to give the example that you gave about the work situation. So where is it where I should stop accepting the changes I see and think about protecting me and my family and being beneficial to others in that way?
So you mean there you are living in the United States and you decide I really can't cope with this anymore and I try to get up and move to Portugal or something. That's what Americans are doing these days, all going to Portugal. Is that what you mean? Now you got to have wisdom. Okay, so
Which USA with Israel, but yes, yeah.
So in Israel, okay, there you go. No, that's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, it's like I know that's a difficult one. You just got to use your common sense and not have too much attachment to a place, and not have too much fear. I mean, you know, I that must be difficult because if you thought that you were living in the Ukraine and someone said they're going to have a war in a month, they would laugh at you. But now suddenly there is a war and it's too late to leave. You know, so it's hard one to say. It's a hard one. I don't know the answer to that. You got to have some wisdom and some common sense, and don't act out of fear. That's what I was. But I can't even. I think that would be quite difficult because you can't see what's going to happen. I mean, is it really getting worse? I mean, do you think it's going to be are people predicting that it'll be terrible in Israel?
It does take a little longer than we thought, maybe, and things are getting a little bit worse by the day. I don't think there's an existential threat, but at some point you got to stop accepting the change.
No, I agree. No, I totally agree with that. At some point you've got to realize you don't want to live there anymore. Like a job will keep changing and keep changing, and the boss will get worse and worse. I agree. You've got to stop accepting it and then leave. I agree with you. So you need to be able to make that decision. And my feeling is it's not as if it's the end of the world to move from one country to another. So take the opportunity while you can. And if things get better, you go back. Don't wait till the last moment, you know. So I think not to be afraid of change is a really important thing. And if you've got the means, you can do it, then go ahead. There's nothing wrong. It could be good. It could be a whole new start for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because people often are afraid to leave their homes because they're attached to their home country. Don't be attached. And then absolutely nothing wrong with change. I agree with your point. A good point. Nothing wrong with it. Move to Australia. People seem to like Yeah, I mean, South Africans all moved to Australia. I think it's the only white. They kind of think it's the only white country left. Although there's plenty of black people in Australia, but they think there's only white people. Anyway, darling, it's not an easy one. So I've got a feeling we're going to stop now. All right, I think enough for the day. So there's so much been said. If you remember any of it, we can listen again if we want. But the bottom line is, know we have amazing potential. Know that we can change our mind. We can reinterpret things. We can see things differently for our own benefit, not to mention to qualify us to be of benefit to others. This is the real point. And then, of course, we're using the Buddhist analysis here. So if you like it, don't just hear it and go vaguely, oh, yeah, karma, oh, yeah, the mind. Learn the nuts and bolts because that's the basis of the theories, you know. It really does help. And then become better and better and better at seeing your own mind and changing it. That's for your benefit and the benefit of others. Okay, people, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been so nice to be with you all. Jangchub Semchog, Rinpoche, Ma Kye Panam Kye Gyuchig, Kye Panyampa Me Panyang, Gong Ne, Gondu Pelba Shog. Let's make compassion grow and grow and grow in the hearts of all. Okay, people. That's it.